It's the summer of love, and this week you may find out just who that will be. I'll have all that and more for. Hello and welcome to Namaste Today Live. I'm Sensei Christopher Oteki, your host, your spiritual guide, and your teacher, here to help you through the energies of the vortex we call Earth. And I am live tonight on all of our streaming platforms. We're on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, X.com, and Instagram. And if you are in our super chat, which is a chat that unites everyone in all those places into one big chat, so we can have our community together for one big chat a week. Hey, tell us where you're watching from and what your astrology sign is. Let's say hi to some people. Hello, Danielle. Hello, Jamie. Nice to see you. Michelle Kemper. So nice to see you again. Nancy Rudy. I think it's the first time I've noticed your name. So hello. Hello to Elena Bailey, Noelle Way, our producers in the audience, Danielle Hall, Jamie Mahoney, a Cancer. Hello. And Daryl Blankenship. I notice you got a new mugshot and thumbnail, sir. Well, friends, it's an exciting time. We're so happy to have you here. We have so much going on astrologically. I am recuperating from having lost my voice. You guys witnessed that happening actually last week, right? But this week in astrology, we have so much happening. For one, the Mars will square Pluto, which could escalate war around the planet. That happens on Monday. The Sun will square Saturn this week, which means God is watching. And later tonight on ASTRO MINGLE, just in time for Ascension symptoms, Osteopath to the performing arts industry and Psycho-Physiology expert, say that 5 times, Jenny Morton is here to talk about owning our physical healing and ascension in our body. But first, let's take a look at the week's moods and your zodiac weather. From Saturday, June 8th to Friday, June 14th, 2024. Looking ahead at the weekend forecast, over the weekend, you are taking action to move your new plans forward. Let's drill down. On Saturday, it's sunny, nesting, and resting. Step 18 means Mars rules the day. You're ready to put your ideas into motion. The moon in Cancer says that you are feeling just about everything that's going on. You are thinking proactively. You are turning a manifestation corner with the actions that you do. And Mars now enters into Taurus, which means you have plenty of energy to get the job done. On Sunday, it's sunny and optimistic. Step 19 means that the Earth is ruling the day. This is a natural manifestation day. You are thinking productively and breaking new ground. Also, the moon moves from Cancer into Leo, so you're feeling the future and you're feeling your heart deserving it. But we do have a couple of interesting aspects. The Sun will square Saturn, which means your heart must make sure that your mind is in line with your spiritual goal. And Mercury sextiles the North Node in Aries, which means you're also mindful of the way. Looking ahead at the week at the 5-day mood forecast. Over the course of the week, we're in the step 20s, which means we're now reaching mastery. And because every degree starts with a 2, your emotions must be reconciled with your mind. On Monday, it's cloudy and cautious. Step 20 means the moon rules the day and the moon is in Leo. So you are thinking passionately from the heart and acknowledging future and the uncertainty of the future. On Tuesday, it's going to be a sunny and ambitious day. Step 21 means it's starting to get fun. Jupiter rules the day, so we are now expanding what we believe in. You are thinking expansively. You're revving up for more self-love. Mars squares Pluto, which means you must reconcile self-worth with self-love. Venus sextiles Chiron, which means you must reconcile and connect to your healing about the future. And we have a 10-hour void of course on this day, so it may feel as though time has stopped. On Wednesday, hump day, it is cloudy but awkward. Step 22 means Uranus rules the day. You are thinking today timelessly and opening up to a new dimension of thinking about the future. Mercury squares Saturn, so the mind is reconciling with one's spiritual path. And the moon moves from Leo into Virgo, which means those dreams begin to become real. On Thursday, it's cloudy but focused. Step 23 is a Grandmaster Mercury rule day in Gemini. You are thinking you understand. You are finding your footing. The Sun now sextiles Chiron, so now the heart is reconciling and connecting to the possibilities of unlimited potential for the future. Mercury joins a little later, so the mind and heart are both now on the same page. And then on Friday, it's sunny and determined. Step 24 means Venus rules the day. I am thinking creatively, experiencing inner liberation. And with Mercury conjoining the Sun, the heart and the mind are on the exact same page.
It's serious joy, joy, joy.
If you're watching on YouTube, please be kind and do subscribe to our YouTube channel, Serious Joy TV. Hit the bell button so you're notified. And if you don't mind, please like this video right now so the YouTube algorithm will suggest us to other people who are astrological enthusiasts. Namaste Today Live is sponsored this week by the Lemurian Life Expo 2024. I don't know if you remember Ruben Langdon, one of our friends of the show here. He is going to do a conference at Mount Shasta to unveil a universe where time-honored secrets meet tomorrow's vision. This is a conference that focuses on the earthly roots of the Lemurian teachings and the vastness of cosmic wisdom. If you don't know, the Lemurians were an ancient race that I think was wiped out by the Atlanteans, that's a whole nother story, that lived in the Pacific Ocean, or where the Pacific Ocean is now. All of them migrated upon knowing that their civilization was going to collapse into the mountain of Mount Shasta. And all the experts coming here are going to be discussing this interesting phenomenon. By the way, this will begin on summer solstice. I don't know why I said winter, summer solstice, which is going to be June 20th, 24. I will be attending in person. So if you want to meet me there, you can catch me there. I'll be there for the conference. There's an in-person conference and live stream both. So if you can't make it to California, Mount Shasta, you can watch on live stream. The conference is between June 20th and June 22nd. The workshops are on June 23rd and June 24th. And my buddy Ruben Langdon is the one who is hosting this. He's amazing. Some of my favorite X-dimensional channelers and mediums will be at this, including Wendy Kennedy, who channels the Ninth Dimensional Palladian Collective channel. Say that 5 times. Rob Gauthier, who channels Archangel Metatron and Ardif. And it's hosted by Heather Taylor, who's a spiritual mentor and 5D producer. We do have a little clip on the video. Let's roll that clip.
To me, Lemuria is one of the highest civilizations we've had on the planet. And the guides tell me that Lemuria was the beginning of this grand experiment that we're playing in, where we began to come down through descension to see what it was like to exist in a denser realities. We could play in the illusion of separation. And as we're kind of coming back up in frequency, we're starting to get to more of our memories of Atlantis. And then once we integrate that, then we can move on to Lemuria. So we're just getting to the point where we're really able to access some of the deeper records and deeper knowledge of Lemuria. It was a high civilization where we really utilized the power of the divine feminine and working in balance with the divine masculine as well. And we utilized technology that was more in balance with nature, which we're not doing so much now, but we're coming back around to that and learning how to use our own internal spark to create a reality.
I'm personally excited to be there. I hope I can see you there as well. Ruben Langdon is a man of integrity. I know this is going to be an amazing conference. And of course, Mount Shasta has all sorts of paranormal activities, if you know or don't know, including we've heard of Ascended Master Saint Germain allegedly floats around there. There's a book that I'll never return to my sister. I saw her posting about that. And much, much more. So I hope to see you there. If you'd like to know more, visit LemurianLifeExpo.com, LemurianLifeExpo.com. Tell Ruben I sent ya. All right, friends, without further ado, let's take a look at the week's planets and transits. Yay. That video makes me happy. It reminds me as a kid, like when we were kids, I mean, all we did in the summer was play in the hose. That was like all you could do where I was from is play in the hose. Squirt each other, have hose fights from across the yard. It's nice. That summer vibe has arrived, and we're calling this the summer of love. The summer of love energetically means that we are opening up and falling in love, I believe, with a new way of thinking about ourselves. And I have already started having this happen, actually. We had a new moon here in this last week, if you didn't know. That was a step 16 new moon. And that step 16 new moon ultimately was planting seeds, magical seeds, for a pathway forward that involved our heart and probably involved our mind opening up on another level. One of the things I've really noticed, actually, as we come into this year, first of all, is we have all grown tremendously in this year. I mean, raise your hand in the chat if you have grown tremendously this year since February. I'm very curious. Or raise your hand in the comments. I'd like to know. And incredibly fast growth. I mean, it took our entire lifetimes to get to this point and to get to this place. But now that we have come here with Saturn and Pisces, I believe we have faced a lot of our karma that we were born with. And we have come to a place now where we have come to a resolve inside of ourselves about certain things that have been a hang up probably our entire life. And so as we went through Pisces this year, at Serious Joy, we had the 40 Days of Past Lives and Karma, an amazing program as it turns out, because so many people have come to me, even at Unite the Light, telling me how that program has changed their life. They finally could see what it is that holds them back in life. But that was huge. Then we had that huge solar eclipse. I was in Texas for that in Aries. That was 19 degrees Aries. That was the introduction of the grand I am. So reinventing ourselves, so to speak, with this new inner fortitude that we are now the resolved, the healed, the strong, the returned, the repaired, the restored, however you want to look at it, version of ourself. And then we went into May, which was incredibly intense, I have to say. That's part of the reason why my throat, I think, is still actually under repair, just from the incredible pressure I had put on my throat in May, trying to manifest like a Taurus from the throat chakra. And in May, it was the grand I manifest, where we had tremendous energy, but probably most specifically the sun conjuncting Jupiter at 28 degrees in Taurus. That was the day of Unite the Light. And on that day, that ultimately was us planting magic beans to manifest forward in our life something from this spiritually healed part of us, this grand I am, and this great grand I manifest. And that brings us to the month of June, which is the I Think I Am month. That's what I'm calling this month, the I Think I Am month. And the reason for this is because I believe that we're coming to a new idea about who we are and how to think of ourselves. And what I believe is now that we have cleared this karma, declared our new grand I am, planted the magical beans of grand manifestation, we simply aren't the same person we used to be. And our mind is still rudely programmed for the old way. And so what we've been doing here in the beginning of Gemini, with Jupiter moving into Gemini and the Sun and Venus working together in Gemini, is that we have been ultimately opening our hearts and opening our minds to a different way of thinking about ourselves. I've also noticed too, some of the theme going on, that we have had tremendous tests of our karma since Neptune is at step 29. So, and a lot of things that have been happening, I've noticed a lot of people have had little moments where they maybe had an accident that happened, or perhaps there was an illness. I know people who've gotten into car accidents. I know people who have lost jobs suddenly. Some people have had to move. I know a bunch of people who were given notices that they had to move, and they didn't necessarily feel like they were going to or hadn't really wanted to. So this Neptune at 29, I think also is pushing the envelope for how it is that we face our final little notes of our karma. And this little pushing of the envelope is also forcing tremendous discussion in our mind about how life, in fact, is changing. Excuse me. So still getting over a little bit of a cold myself too. I think still processing. That's another thing that's been happening. So many people I know have been getting ill, flu, whatever it is, to purge. A lot of people I know are losing a lot of weight right now. So this is all part of the transformation of us now turning towards the story we were born to live. And what it involves really right now is opening our mind to think differently. Now, it's my opinion that human race has lost its way when it comes to how to operate the human body. I personally feel that when science and reason came along, it attempted to hijack control of the earth from the church. And of course, the church threatened scientific reason, right? These two different schools sort of split at one point, two major belief structures. And what happened is emotion and intuition got sort of packaged with religion, and intellect and logic got sort of associated with science. So people who consider themselves scientific and rational began to rationalize away their feelings and their intuition. And I believe we slowly migrated out of our instincts and into a very singular, cerebral, and ego based version of ourselves. To me, this was the darkest of the dark ages. Honestly, this is the moment of returning to the light this lifetime. This is the moment where we are now going to bring heaven on earth. There'll be many challenges. And so you could say that probably just prior to 2012, in fact, I would say, in my astrological opinion, 2011 was maybe one of the darkest times on earth ever. When I say darkest, I mean people disconnected from their hearts, disconnected from their minds, from their souls, living only in their minds, living only in their ego. To me, that was really the apex. Probably the darkest part in human history, however, was the use of the nuclear bomb, I think, in World War II. So I would say probably we started to lighten up in 2011, 2012, but probably our darkest hour was the last time Uranus was in Taurus. So the point is that everyone has sort of trained their spirituality to ignore, or train their mind to ignore their spirituality, to ignore their heart, and to ignore their emotions. And because we live solely in our mind, I think the powers that be, which are aware of this, have been using mind games, mind control, manipulation, lying, holding secrets, retaining information, rewriting history, all these things basically to control civilization. And I'm a person now where, I have no doubts about it. I don't even want to discuss about whether it's happened or hasn't happened. We are heavily controlled. And if nothing else, just look at an organized chart of all the corporations in the world. It all goes to 8 corporations. So that alone tells you 8 CEOs are basically running every business in the world, theoretically, right? So part of our awakening process is coming out of the mind control, reprogramming our mind, giving our mind new habits on how to manage our consciousness. And I believe that's what this Jupiter in Gemini transit is. Jupiter entered into Gemini not too long ago for the first time since 2012. So what's interesting is I believe back in 2012, that's when we began to wake up. That's when we began to really incorporate our subconscious, our spiritual self. We began to face our karma. And the very first thing we did was expand into, with Jupiter and Gemini, this thinking that we have to heal, a new thinking in that we are here to evolve, a new thinking that we are here to integrate. Now that we're here 12 years later, I believe Jupiter and Gemini is saying, okay, we've integrated. Now it's time to dissemble all of the brainwashing, all of the mind games, and in our own self, personally, all of our own inner workings where we ourselves quite often ignore things that we should not be ignoring, and also stay in certain ruts and certain ways of thinking over and over again. We all have this repetitive thinking. Most of our repetitive thinking is really based on avoiding pain, making sure something bad doesn't happen again, walking on eggshells to, not hurt someone else, or to not get in trouble for something, or to not repeat our karma. So even our internal personal thinking is really brainwashed because it has been all to avoid our, pain body, basically. A lot of people actually do not have the understanding of where they're going in life because they're here to do something similar that they've done in a past life. So a lot of times I have clients in readings where they don't know what their life purpose is. They don't know what they want to do in their life. And the reason is because they're here to do something similar that they failed at in a past life. And the mind is aware of this subconscious problem. The mind is aware of, what could happen if you did that again. And so the mind literally will ignore what it is the person has come here to do because the mind does not want to have the same thing happen. So a lot of us are completely oblivious to why we're here or what we want to do because our mind is frankly not paying attention, ignoring it, playing mind games. You'll even see people, for instance, when a person changes the subject really quickly out of nowhere, quite often that's a mental technique because you've gotten too close to something sensitive. And the mind is just trained to change like that, like a flash in that sort of sense. So this moment, I believe, with Jupiter, and I have to look and see exactly where Jupiter is looking for all my notes here. Jupiter this week goes from 3 to 4 degrees. So what Jupiter is doing between 3 and 4 degrees, step 3 and step 4, is first of all, at step 3, changing what we believe about ourselves at the core. That's probably the underlying issue that we are going to work on this week, is that you have a certain belief about yourself at the core. Maybe you always believed that life had to be hard. Maybe you believed that you'd always end up alone. Maybe you believed you'd never have children. Maybe you believed that you would end up dying young. Those types of beliefs, which I hear all the time from people, are almost always subconscious past life traumas that they're projecting onto this life. And what I've been noticing in the last 10 days is that people are now changing that core belief and that core thinking about themselves. And many people are changing to things they never, ever thought they would change to. For instance, I know someone who suddenly wants to have children when that person told me they would not have children again. I know another person who now is looking for love, but when I met that person, they were convinced they would never find love. I know people who are deciding to leave certain places on Earth, that they want to move out of certain places, and they thought that they would retire in that region of the country or of the world. These are the types of profound ideas that the summer of love is starting to fuel and to ignite. And this summer of love really is, in my opinion, this new belief, this new idea as to who you can be and what you're capable of. And as a result of this new belief and what you're capable of, how will life change? And that ultimately is where we are this week. Last week, we really considered life changes. I don't know, you guys let me know in the chat. Did you find things that fell apart in your daily life last week? My voice did. Certain aspects of things falling apart. That's because the universe was trying to sort of shake up how we view day-to-day life, to shake up how you communicate day-to-day life, to shake up certain mental patterns. There's a lot of disruptive energy happening right now, and it's disruptive in the sense that it's not trying to necessarily help you find the right path, but it's trying to disrupt you out of the path or the mental path that you have been having. You could say that we are rewiring our brains from 0 to 100 in the next year with Jupiter and Gemini. And this week, what's going to happen is you're going to realize that you now believe something new about yourself. I now believe I'm going to move and not retire in this state. I now believe I'm going to, go ahead and go back to school. I now believe that I can live on my own. So you're going to come to this new belief. And then when Jupiter hits 4 degrees, there will be a breakdown basically in your core intellect of how you think about yourself. Now you may go, what's a breakdown? That sounds kind of nervous. It's actually very exciting. It's sort of like if you once thought that it was not possible to go out to outer space. And then I told you, oh yes, we've invented rockets and you'll be able to in your lifetime go to outer space. That sort of blows your mind. Like you may not know, wow, I don't know what to think about this. This is just amazing. This is incredible. This is totally different. So when you have an epiphany discovery, it changes everything. And it's so interesting because Your entire life changes in the snap of a second when you realize this thing. But at the same time, nothing changes because the only thing that changed was your perception, right? And so another example of this, just to give you an idea, because I do believe this is going to happen this week for people, is like if you wake up in the morning and you don't know how you're going to pay rent and you're tired of struggling and you're having a hard time with money and you're having a hard time manifesting enough, and then you find out that you inherited $1 million from some uncle, that one phone call from the family estate that just shifted your perception, your entire life changes simply from a thought, the idea that you actually have no problems with abundance or lack for the rest of your life. So it's that sort of gold I think we're going to strike this week, in the sense that we're going to strike gold inside of ourselves. We're going to realize, oh my goddess, I don't necessarily believe this about me anymore. And so therefore, what does that mean for my life? And what we're going to end up doing in the course of this week is committing to this new life and this new way of thinking, which I believe is the super beginning of the summer of love. I believe this idea that you have. Now, this idea, by the way, could be a number of things. It could be that you have an idea about what you want to do. You have an idea that you're ready for love. You have an idea that you can make a difference in the world. Whatever this idea is, the planets show it's going to be nurtured for another 7 days, this whole next week, as the Sun and Venus remain in a conjunction until Mercury and Venus move into Cancer together, and they will conjunct in Cancer, I think on the 16th. I'll take a look and make sure. I think I saw it on the 16th, but I have my whole book here now just to make sure I have everything at my fingertips when I shoot. But nonetheless, once we fall in love with this idea, I believe this idea is going to be carried into Cancer, where you emotionally mature and prepare for this to happen, and then carry into Leo, where your heart is either going to accept or reject this idea. And then Virgo, I predict the idea will begin to become real. And as soon as this idea becomes real, that's what Virgo does, it makes it real. Pluto will move back into Capricorn, and we'll have our final test from September 1, I think, to November 20th. I'm not exactly sure on that. Pluto at 29 degrees Capricorn, where all world power will be shifting and tested. And I believe a lot of the reason why the world power will be shifted and tested is simply because everyone has now decided they want to pursue their love. They want to pursue something they're in love with. Basically, when you have the whole world chasing after gold, chasing after their dreams, chasing after something they love, the vibration of the planet begins to rise. And this, my friend, is the beginning for the greatest show on earth that you have ever seen in any lifetime, which is the ascension of Earth to 5D, or us getting on Earth 3, as I like to say. Thank you, everyone, for your kind thoughts and comments. My voice is healing. We'll be talking about that with tonight's special guest. And I will be taking sips throughout, so no need to tell me in chat. So with that said, let's take a look at the planets, shall we? And talk about what we can expect for the week. We'll start, of course, with Gemini. There is a party going on in Gemini. We have, as you can see, Mercury, we have the Sun, we have Venus, and we have Jupiter. All right, so this is quite a party going on here in the planets. Probably the fastest moving, of course, is Mercury. Mercury goes from 10 to 23 this week, and that's a pretty big stretch. I had to go and look at it twice. Mercury is moving as fast as it moves right now. It's at its top speed, which is almost 2 degrees or 2 steps a day, which means your mind literally processes 2 steps in a 24-hour period, which means life starts to really begin moving fast. And from step 10 to step 23 is basically what I value in myself, all the way to what's my grand vision for my future. So you will, in 1 week, intellectually plan on where you plan to point your life into the future in just this 1 week. At the same time, the Sun moves from step 18 step 81 to step 24, which means that our hearts are going to launch a new lifestyle this week. And by the end of the week, our heart's going to be saying, okay, do I feel and accept this as the lifestyle? By the way, these two planets, Mercury and the Sun, are actually coming together through the week, and Mercury will Cazimi the Sun on Friday, 1 week from now when I'm back on the air. That Cazimi is our heart and mind making up an agreement, the heart and mind coming together. It also usually provides flashes of inspiration and information. And so what ends up happening over the course of this week is tomorrow on Saturday, you take action with this new idea. On Sunday, you hold space for this idea to manifest. On Monday, you emotionally feel with step 20 that the whole future is in front of you. And so you could say that by next Friday, I believe you will have launched what I call the summer of love. You will be on to some sort of yellow brick road, if you will. And all the while, of course, we have going on also Venus in Gemini. So we are opening up and accepting this new future. And then, of course, we have Jupiter in Gemini. And so Jupiter in Gemini is saying, as we commit to this whole possibility of what this new idea is, we end up changing the core belief, Jupiter from 3 to 4, changing the core belief about who we are. So what I'm guessing here is that we will ultimately here in 1 week realize that we need to point our life in a totally different direction. And once we do that, we realize we will never be the same on the inside again. And that Mars is my fault, not my director's. Let's take a look at Taurus. One thing you know about Taurus is we have Uranus at 24 degrees all week in Taurus. And the important thing is the 24, because 24 is the same number that the Sun and Mercury will Cazimi on Friday. And so what that means is that ultimately, this isn't just about us coming up with a strategy and a plan. This is about taking that plan to heart. 24 is where I feel I belong. So what I recommend to everyone watching is that you stay very emotionally centered this week. Once we get to the step 2s, step 20 on Monday, step 21 on Tuesday, step 23 on Wednesday, step 24 on Thursday to Friday, somewhere we lose a day there, it gets all squished. It goes to 25 by Friday night, basically. You are emotionally really holding space and telling yourself that you feel you belong in this new area. Now, the reason why you have to constantly stay in touch with where you feel you belong is because your mind is brainwashed to reject this. I think the hardest part of this week is overcoming your old programming to think something's wrong, to think there's a problem, to think something will fall apart, to think it'll be an uphill battle. All this really perverted thinking that came from all of our pain body and our trauma, this thinking is still in play, even though that war against ourselves or that time of self-realization was all based on learning. But now that old program is still playing, still running amok, if you will. So the way to know you're on track this whole week is to feel you belong with this vision. Your mind is definitely going to play games. You're going to be seeing where your mind goes negative, where your mind argues, where your mind maybe talks back or gets sassy or develops an attitude. All of that stuff in the mind, going on in the mind, is, again, just residue and programming from all of your pain body experiences in your life up until now. And so, many people have come to me in the last week or so, worried about this, worried about that, worried about that. And you talk to me, I said the same thing. You're caught in your old mind games about the way things were. They're on autopilot, and you have to stay tuned to your feelings to know this is authentic. Your mind won't know it's authentic for probably a year. That's what I think. The whole Jupiter transit in Gemini. I don't even think we'll lay down the first belief structure until Jupiter retrogrades in October. I think it's October 8th. And Jupiter will retrograde at 21 degrees Gemini, which is basically your belief structure in your mind. So we're completely rewriting our belief structure. So with Uranus at 24, you have to really feel that you belong manifesting what you're here to manifest, that you belong creating the life you deserve, that you belong having everything you desire. And that's also very important too. I can't go into the depths of it now. I talk about this more in my personal sensei service, but I do believe 100% that it's time for the light workers to make bank. I do think it's time for the light workers to manifest abundance and show the world that spirituality and wealth can go together without it being an organized religion. Remember, Earth is abundance by herself. I think there's a lot of people at the top who want to control all the resources, and then they turn around and say the Earth is out of resources. I got to tell you, I'm a Taurus. I got a master Venus at 26 degrees Taurus. I can feel Mother Earth. She is more abundant than we have ever even imagined. And there's no way these little ants walking on her back are going to ruin her. That's just something I feel in my heart and know it's just not going to happen. So the idea that there's not enough is a lie, in my opinion. We have the technology, we have the resources, and we even have higher technology as well. Now, another storyline going on is Aries. In Aries, this is where Mars belonged. Then it belonged going to Taurus. So I'll talk about that here. That's my fault. I put in the wrong information. Typical Gemini stuff. Mars begins this week. Right now, from now until tomorrow, Mars is hitting 29 degrees Aries. And it's sextiling Neptune at 29 Pisces. You may be feeling really challenged. You may be triggered. You might get angry. And I got to say, Mars at 29 also is a very dangerous degree where people get into accidents. So do not let people drink and drive, folks, ever. But in particular, watch your friends and that sort of thing right now. Mars at that degree does mean that you might have to go above and beyond somewhere in your life to make something happen or to pull something off. It also means that your character might be tested, right? So an example of this is sort of like when a parent says, I never want to raise my voice to my children. And then the children get so crazy and just starts acting up so much that the parent raises their voice. That's an example where your ego is tested, where you said, my ego is going to behave this way, and then something agitates the ego and calls to the moment your experience and how well programmed you are at that behavior. So be on the lookout for the unexpected, for unnecessary triggers. And quite often, God uses other people to do those tests. So a lot of times someone will step on your sore toe completely by accident, not deliberately. And although you may want to focus on that person and your toe, it's really about how do you respond to that moment? Do you respond to yourself? Are you using the winged ego? Are you using the grounded ego? That's really the question. Another aspect this week is the North Node goes from 13 to 12 degrees, which is going to be much more comfortable. I think part of the reason why we've had a lot of people in having accidents and getting hurt and having these like last minute karmic emergencies in this last week was due to the fact the North Node was at 13 and was sort of a commanding that we must now take our behavior to a higher level. Of course, a lot of times what gets you to take your behavior to a higher level is something misbehaving. Okay, so you might have had something really misbehaved this week. On top of that, we have Chiron at 22 this week, which means that we're trying to also shatter the glass ceiling of what we once thought was possible. And this is the other thing I find really fascinating is Chiron at 22. I'm really in touch with so many people right now. And many people, like I said earlier, are having a change of mind about what they will do. And it's because they have healed themselves and they now realize that they do feel that they belong, like they should own their own home, or they do feel that they should get remarried, or they do feel, that they should go back to school. And part of that is Chiron at 22, because it's been sort of healing any trauma around times when we try to innovate or do something like amazing or daring. 22 is a very mystical, magical wizard's degree. And so basically Chiron at 22 is healing our ability to do sort of performance magic, if you will. And so if you were afraid to go down a path because you're afraid you wouldn't be able to perform, well, Chiron now I think is bringing closure to that. You're going to say, you know what? I think I can get back up on that high wire. I think I feel like I do belong, going back into the business or whatever that might be. So a lot of ego transformation this week. And then Mars will move back into Taurus. Can we go back to Taurus, Sarah, just and pretend Mars is there? Thanks. So Mars actually has entered into Taurus, enters into Taurus, and I'll look at the day here, exactly what day it is Saturday, tomorrow. Okay. So tomorrow Mars moves into Taurus. It's only tonight that we have that real test of character and strength. But Mars moving into Taurus does give us a nice boost of energy. One of the things that I've been noticing, and when I talked to Jenny Morton today, we're going to talk about this going on. So many people are telling me they are exhausted. They have no energy. They just feel depleted. And I've told people, I think what this is that we're just burning so many calories, facing emotions and facing trauma and facing certain issues, that we are just really tired. I also think Mars and Aries did a lot of adrenal burnout. I think a lot of people's adrenals got burned out and created adrenal fatigue with Mars and Aries this year, because I think it was sort of like quadrupled, if you will, from that solar eclipse at 19 Aries on April 7th. So with Mars going into Taurus, the good news is energy is going to be distributed a lot cleaner now, because Mars in Taurus is very methodical. I look at Mars and Taurus like the seven dwarves. Hi ho, off to work I go. That's all I can sing before Disney tries to sue me. But the point is that Mars has that sort of like, pacing yourself, not always working, getting the job done, but also, clocking out when you're meant to, because Taurus is all about value. So in essence, I'm predicting that everyone's going to get a booster shot of energy starting tomorrow. I believe you're going to start to feel strong. This is especially true, of course, with Tauruses. With Scorpios, this will make you a bit irritable with your partners. I just want to put that out there because Mars in the 7th can sometimes not feel like heaven. All right, that's going on in Taurus. And Mars in Taurus is also giving you a second boost to manifest what you want to manifest, to take your creative projects from May to the next level, to follow through on your promises. And I'm actually glad for this because it's going to ground us, because with Jupiter and Gemini, all this Gemini, I don't know about you, but I'm just like bouncing off the walls right now in my mind, having the hardest time getting off the calls with people. Like, I got to go. Like everyone's just like chatting it up like crazy. Mars and Taurus is going to ground things again and make things better. Oh, good job, Sarah. She whipped one together. So Mars ends up going to 4 degrees. And that is actually what I wanted to point out. And the end of this talk of Mars is because once Mars hits 4 degrees, which will happen next Friday from Thursday to Saturday, basically in the United States, it differs by where you are in the world, of course. This could be a major, major epiphany about how your behavior either raises or lowers. That's the word. Either raises or lowers your self-worth. So part of this week really is really getting super, smooth about the way you treat yourself, and realizing that every response to yourself is either building your internal stock market or it is breaking down your internal stock market. So internal stock market starts getting volatile on Thursday and on Friday. Looking at the moon is currently in Cancer, which I felt, by the way, earlier. I always feel that first decade of the moon in Cancer for me. It feels the same every freaking month. It's always a little bit of a check. The moon's about to go into my 12th house. But what that means is ultimately we are very moody and emotional and sensitive over the weekend. So as we go over the weekend, we'll have step 17 and step 18 and 19 over the weekend. So you're taking action over the weekend, and you are manifesting this new mindset, this new strategy, these new plans. And while you're doing all this, you're feeling very emotionally sensitive. You're picking up on everyone else who's also emotionally sensitive. So, we're all going to sort of, I think, probably be a little impatient, probably honking at each other in green lights, things like that. Then the moon moves into Leo, which I cannot wait for, my rising and my moon, on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And as the moon is in Leo on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, this is where we start to move from step 19 intermediate Gemini to step 20 master Gemini. And the interesting thing you should know about this, and again, I can't get super deep on this. There's just so much I love to teach. But all the step 20s of Gemini all start with a 2, which is the moon, which means that if you are step 20 to step 29 Gemini, you're actually ruled by your feelings more than you are your mind. Your feelings and your tone, the tone you take, once we hit Monday with step 20, the tone you take, okay, in your emotional self will affect your attitude about life. So if you're having any attitude problems as you start off this transit, it's because you're having emotional issues that your mind is trying to solve. And honestly, the mind has no business solving emotional issues. The only time the mind can fix an emotional issue is if the mind is the one that caused it. So yes, sometimes you feel better when you change your mind. That's because your mind was making you feel bad. But there are 11 other states of awareness that could be affecting our emotions. The point is, as of Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with the moon in Leo, you're going to be emotionally sensitive, particularly around love, your heart, etc. I'm expecting this moon to be really the fire starter that really lights up the summer of love and really makes you get excited and passionate about these ideas. And that's really what Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday is. It's step 20, 21, and 22. So it's sort of like, oh my God, when you start to realize in your mind and in your heart, because the moon's highlighting the Leo, just how exciting and amazing this idea is, whatever it may happen to be for you. Then the moon moves into Virgo. And that's on actually it happens Wednesday afternoon, depending on where you are, Thursday, and on Friday. And that's when we go from step 22, step 23, and step 24. So it's almost like we get super excited and then the moon goes into Virgo and we're like, hold on. Does this really make sense? Can this be real? Can this be realized? Can this be, can logic be applied to this? Or is this just some sort of crazy idea, that I'm having? So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, when we go from step 22, where you realize that this could be, you could be standing on a mountain, or you could be standing on a gold mine, or you could be on the precipice of something really provocative or, pioneering. The moon in Virgo sort of checks you at the door. So again, pay attention to your feelings more than your mind, because when you have these discoveries, it's my bet your mind is going to be defensive, deflective, try to change your mind. Your mind is still programmed to keep the old pain body going. And so the only thing that's going to keep you on your path are your feelings. All right. Okay. Moving on to the Pisces energy. Saturn has now reached step 19, which is a Taurus degree, and Neptune is at step 29. So, and by the way, Neptune's at 29 for the entire summer. This is opening up all sorts of wormholes, I'm finding out. One thing that this is doing is it's bringing up a lot of the past. I think I talked about this last week, but I went to LA. I had a lot of trauma come up from when I lived in LA, knock me down for a couple of days. I think that was Neptune. I think Neptune at 29 is like squeezing that last bit of karma out of the toothpaste. A lot of times we associate pain and trauma with a specific destination, such as a house, a location, a time in our life, or an age. And Neptune at 29 is really opening up all those pockets. The other thing about Neptune at 29 is my psychic awareness has never been sharper. I have never been so sharp to the point of literally reading people's minds right now. I've always read minds, but I've always just sort of, maybe it's that I've slowed down and I'm watching it happen now. I don't know. Because what I used to think was me just being really smart, turned out it was my psychic awareness. I wasn't that smart. I was intuiting the answer. But what I am definitely noticing is a lot of intense dreams, which we'll be talking about at LOL next Monday. I've been noticing a lot of intergalactic sort of stuff, a lot of alien sort of energy on the planet. And, divine messages coming in about the future. Now, Saturn at 19 says that we must take the responsibility right now to manifest our new spiritual pathway. And this is an ultimate. So this is between these two, this is basically knocking people on their ASTRO if you are not on the right path. So if you get sick, if you have a breakdown, if your wife wants to leave you, if you have a partner in the hospital, if you there's a car accident, if suddenly you're foreclosed on, if suddenly, someone pulls out of a business deal, anything like that, anything sort of just sudden, I think it's because you were heading on the wrong path. You did not get the postcard. You did not, collect $200 when you crossed go. You did not pay attention. And so the universe is sort of slapping people, knocking them down if they don't get it. And it's a wake-up call, and it's a courtesy wake-up call. And everyone who's come to me saying, why did this happen? I'm like, that was a courtesy. That was a courtesy because you were manifesting the wrong direction. You were heading for a cliff. You would have been off of your path. You would have been unhappy when you reviewed the tapes in heaven. So it's really a blessing in disguise. Now, that said, this week we have activity with Saturn. The sun actually will square Saturn. Mercury will square Saturn on Wednesday. The sun squares Saturn on Sunday. What that ultimately means is that our thoughts, the way we're thinking, the direction we're taking things, this all gets reconciled with your karma. So again, if there is a breakdown on Sunday or Wednesday, write this down on your calendar. Sensei says, if I have a breakdown on Sunday or Wednesday, I was off my karmic path. The universe was sort of, bumping you back on your path. So I actually said this to someone the other day. Actually, I said it a couple of times. I'm starting to feel like we can't really mess this part up. I'm starting to feel like, and I use the example of a walking sidewalk, a moving sidewalk in an airport, where you just stand on the sidewalk and you just stand there and you just blaze past everyone and all their gates. If you just walk, you just walk casually and you're moving 50 miles an hour. That's what it feels like from karma right now. It feels like we're on this moving sidewalk. You made the decision to get on the sidewalk or not pretty much in March. And since March, we have been moving down this pathway to this new timeline. I do think, it'd be very difficult to sabotage it. I also think there's a lot of closure going on with Neptune and Pisces. Like I mentioned when I was in California, I have another trip coming up soon. I know there's probably going to be some more release, just pockets and things like that. So my point is it doesn't feel like the universe wants to leave anybody behind right now. This is a time where you signed up for it at birth. We're all being brought to where we need to be. Janice Graves, I do take vitamin C every day. Thank you. Y'all, I love your help, but I have a great team behind me. One of them you will meet tonight. All right. So let's do Pluto and Aquarius. Pluto and Aquarius is at step 1. The only thing you need to know about this is that we do have some Pluto stuff going on as well this week. We have basically the energy of Pluto is saying you've got to love and protect and be there for yourself no matter what. You've got to hold the vibration, Aquarius. That's what Aquarius is, the vibration. Hold the vibration of love in your heart, and protect that vibration of love in your heart. And so that means that you just hold on to yourself, and you make sure that nothing gets to you. A lot of people have asked me, what does it mean to protect my heart? It means you don't take things to heart. I had a couple of clients that came to me this last week and they're just like, oh my God, so-and-so just totally, blew up or treated me poorly, or someone, basically an interaction with someone else. And I was saying, and they took it to heart. Their heart was being hurt. And I was like, first of all, God is squeezing out their karma. So they're being forced to see these shadow sides of themselves that they don't usually look at. Secondly, you might be learning that you can't allow that to hurt you. We can't allow someone else's idiocracy, ignorance, youth, whatever, to get to our heart. So part of being, I think, enlightened and ascension is, allowing our heart to be protected. The angels are the same way. The angels don't, people say there's no hierarchy in spirituality. That is not true. You can't even get into heaven if you're dark. They put you off on the side. okay? Because they don't want their energy getting all infected with darkness. Everyone is clean before they go to heaven, cleaned, okay? Energetically clean. So what I'm saying here is we've got to start acting like the angels. We've got to start keeping negative energy from even entering into us, not allowing it to enter into our energy. If we happen to be in front of someone who's still struggling with shadow, don't let that shadow affect you. Don't let it get to you. And I've had a couple of times in the last few weeks too, where I almost let shadow affect me. And I was like, no, I can't let shadow affect me. I can't, let that, when people choose to decay, I can't take that to heart, I think is part of what I've been noticing. And some people are choosing to continue to decay. And then lastly, Black Moon Lilith in Virgo. She's from 27 to 28 degrees Virgo. That means that you'll be facing any fears around, changing your life and fears around manifesting the life you were born to live. So if you're afraid that you can't change your life, or you tried to change your life and you blew up last time, and now you're afraid of changing again, that fear is not a sign. I've had a lot of clients coming to me saying they're afraid of stuff. I'm like, it's not a sign. It's the last of your karma. It's the last of your trauma. And I'm living the same reality too. I keep having tons of trauma and tons of stuff coming up in my mind too. And I keep having to remind myself like, no, that's not going to happen this time. Got to go to my feelings. Do I feel I belong in a world where that happens? Do I feel I belong in a world? That's another thing too. I'll say this. Today I'm all over the map, but I don't care. It's Jupiter and Gemini. A lot of people have come to me asking about the elections and everything else. And again, I'm saying you're falling into your trauma. I said, do you feel you belong in a world where there will be no election? Do you feel you belong in the world where you will, fall under some sort of a dark situation? Is that where you feel you belong? If you don't feel you belong there, you're not headed there. That's just the way it is. You're just not headed there. And I've come to really realize that that's where my thinking has really changed this week, where I've come to a point where I'm like, if I feel it's going to be this way, I'm not even letting my mind entertain the possibility of it not. And that was one of my major epiphanies. Like, I'm not even going to think about if something can go wrong. Something is not going to go wrong. And that's, I feel I belong, it will be perfect. And it will. Not always, but if you feel you belong it, then you do. All right. So let's take a quick look at the planets. And I'm going to try to make this, I'm doing pretty good on time. Share screen. Okay. Oh, you know what? Okay, here we go. Take a drink. Okie dokie. Here we go. So keep streaming, of course, for Jenny Morton. And I'll tell you right now a little story about Jenny Morton. She actually is a subscriber. She's a viewer just like you. She does vocal training. She heard my voice breaking down last week. She reached out to us, offered free sessions. Amazing. Found her to be an amazing light worker with full of knowledge. Learned so much about how to protect my voice, and I'm still practicing with it. So it's going to be a great conversation. She's a delight. Looking at the planets here. So we'll go through these quickly. Venus square Saturn. So a couple things happened this week. We have Venus and the Sun both square Saturn. Here they are. Okay. And what this ultimately is having to reconcile between your spiritual path, Saturn, and what your mind is thinking. So this square is going to mess things up and sabotage things if your mind is not on board the spiritual program. All right. So you've got to stay on the spiritual program, chasing after what your heart wants, chasing after self-love. That's 19, chasing after self-love. So Mars enters into Taurus. Oh, it looks like it happens on Sunday. Oh, it happens. Oh, it depends on the time zone. That's what it is. It happens at 12:34 a.m. on the East Coast, but it happens on Saturday night for the rest of the country. But we talked about this, Mars entering into Taurus. Now, this is something I haven't talked about yet. Notice Mars conjoining the asteroid Cupid at step 0 Taurus. That means that we are about to fall in love with our physicality. And I'll be talking about that as well today with Jenny. Mercury squares Juno, I won't get into that today. Sun squares Saturn, we just talked about that. Mercury sextiles the nodes. So again, there's a lot of checking in this week. Mercury, while it's at 13, this happens on Sunday, noontime. Mercury will sextile the nodes at 13. So probably somewhere on Sunday, you're going to get this feeling like you need to up your game. And you do. Everyone needs to up their game. Look around you. This will not be around in the future. Like this society, this world It's being decommissioned. It's being retired. So, you either up or you get left behind. That's sort of a, kind of thing. Now, again, I think the universe is going to push and prod us. I think we're on that moving sidewalk. I think, I think that we have no choice, but I think that universe will be making course corrections here. Then Venus sextiles Saturn on Tuesday. Again, this is just Venus. Oh, excuse me, Chiron. Venus sextiles Chiron. So notice how we're at the step 20 at this point. This is at 3 a.m. But Venus at 22 sextiles Chiron at 22. And so this is sort of a mental course correction. A lot of people have the wrong assumptions about the future. And a lot of reasons, what's really surprising is from what I can tell, the things that people predict to have happening in the future happened in the past, and they're projecting their past onto their future. They're projecting their karma onto their future. So what this is on Tuesday, sort of a course correction that your mind needs to take on a whole new attitude or approach about how you think about the future. So we get sort of a mind adjustment there. Mars then squares Pluto. This is a big one. This is a self-love thing. That was the other thing I was looking for with Pluto. Mars squares Pluto. This happens on Tuesday, 9 a.m. in the morning. So Tuesday morning, you might have a little bit of a self-love check where you realize you need to love yourself a lot more than you are, and your lack of self-love is causing the issue. Then we have Mercury square Saturn. I think we've done that. Sun sextiles Chiron. So again, we're checking in. Now the sun's checking with Chiron. Make sure my heart is open to unlimited possibilities. And Mercury sextiles Chiron. And then Mercury ends the week. This is the apex of the week where Mercury and the Sun Cazimi. And notice Venus is at 26 with a 2-degree orb. 2406, which is really cool also because 24 nets to a 6. This is one of the first times I've ever seen the minutes actually chiming into the net of the step, which is really interesting. By the way, I'll be revealing what the meaning of minutes is in a chart in my upcoming book, which I am working on right now. But this Cazimi is really interesting because we end, look at this transformation on Friday. We have Chiron at 22 net 4 saying, okay, my character belongs on a high level. Mars at step 4, I have to treat myself on a more valuable, higher level. Uranus feeling the step 4, I've got to aim for a much higher level. Jupiter at step 4, I've got to think of myself on a higher level. Mercury and the Sun, I hereby accept and receive this new direction. Venus at 26, and so it is. I commit, and so it is, right? So pretty powerful. This is literally the sentence that our spirit is saying next week when we come back. All right, friends. Well, I'm going to give my voice just a quick little rest here. Go steep yourself some tea. Let's have our tea time. Hello, my tea timers. We're going to be talking about a few things today. I'm giving you a really packed energy analysis for the week. For all 12 signs, I'll be giving you some understanding of really how to navigate these energies. And to me, the real situation is a couple of things. One, the sun, like I said, we have this idea we've fallen in love with, and then we commit to sort of a way of life to get there. So we commit to a way of life. That commitment to a way of life really is happening in the next 24 hours. I'm probably affirming it for you if you're watching live. Then we commit to a new way. So when that Mercury and Sun Cazimi next Friday, it's basically very Mandalorian. This is the way. So 1 week from now, I believe you will know the way. Now, you may doubt the way. Your mind may argue with the way. Your ego may resist the way, but you'll know the way. You may second guess it and pretend like you don't know when you actually do. That's possible as well. But ultimately, we are committing to the way over the course of this week. Now, as this happens, the sun in this journey between 18 and really 25 on Saturday, between 18 and 25, this journey along the way, the sun squares Saturn, as I mentioned, which means our heart has to reconcile the way with our spiritual place or our spiritual path. Then the sun sextiles Chiron, which means then we have to reconcile the way with the grand I am character we are becoming in the future. And so I'll be talking about for all 12 signs what this means as you are finding the way. And then lastly, I'll talk about Mars entering into Taurus and what it means for you, where you are going to be needing to change your behavior, treat yourself differently in this area, and make sure you are behaving and treating yourself appropriately in this area for your self-worth and self-esteem to rise to a new level. The truth is that people have a tremendous higher earning potential right now. My guides keep telling me to go for abundance in every direction right now. I'm not sure exactly why. It's the only time in my life I've ever had my guides telling me to make money. I've never had my guides telling me to make money until now. Usually I'm praying with my guides, asking them, will I make money? Now they're like, go, go, go. And it's not money for money's sake. I'm a soul capitalist. I'm making money helping people and healing people's lives. So I'm not saying it's money for money's sake, but I am saying that your capacity to earn abundance is equal to how valuable you feel on the inside this week. So treat yourself like gold until at least next week. I'll give you an update on where we should go. And as always, we'll take a look on the side here of what sign I am talking about. And let's start, of course, with the Aries. Make that money, honey. I know you're getting the same, Kristen. Oh, that's cool. All right. Sorry, Aries. Aries. Aries, you are completely rewiring the way you think, your attitude about things. You are ultimately committing to basically a thought approach, maybe an algorithm that you're going to use. Maybe you're committing to a tone that you take in your mind. And when it comes to the way for you, the way is an attitude. So by the end of the week in the Cazimi, you want to be adopting an attitude. An attitude is the fusion of an emotional tone and a mental idea. So you want to be committing to an attitude by the end of the week. That is the way. The way is the attitude. All right. Now, this will square Saturn, which means that you will have to also make sure that this attitude does not interfere with your faith. You'll have to make sure that this attitude does not interfere with your spiritual purpose either. So this attitude must be working order with your faith and your spiritual purpose. This attitude must also fit entirely perfectly well like a glove with the character that you are becoming, with the title you are working to achieve, with the achievements you intend to have. So this attitude must go along with faith, spiritual purpose, your character, and your behavior. And with Mars entering into Taurus, it is now time to raise your self-worth. Do everything you can to raise your self-worth until I tell you to stop. So I would, get a higher thread count on your sheets. I would accept people's help. I would accept anything free from the universe, all this stuff, until I tell you to stop, ultimately. Okay. And then mute for the cough. Taurus, for you, okay, so the first thing you have to really get your mindset on is what you're worth. So commit to what you're worth. And maybe that's why I'm being told to make money right now, because of my transit. Maybe that's it. It's so funny. Just realize that. I'm in a money transit. Of course I'm being told to make money. But basically, you want to be committed to your value. And the way for Taurus is an abundant mind, to be mentally abundant. Mentally abundant means there's a million ways to do it, and there's a million ways to do it after that. There is no shortage of ideas. There's no shortage of possibilities, unlimited possibilities, unlimited growth. That is basically the attitude, unlimited possibilities that you want to adopt. Now, that attitude cannot get in the way with who you are in society, what your role is in society, your friends, your associates. It can't get in the way with your social ambition. It cannot get in the way of your spiritual mission in society. So this new way of making money has to be 100% in concert with your spirituality. Ain't I good? I'm already on it. I'm so happy with myself. Now, also, it must be in complete concert with your relationship to God. That's because of that's because of the Sun and Mercury sextiling Chiron at 22. That you basically need to reconcile that there will be no karma, that you are not doomed, that this attitude is not going to blow up in your face, that you're not going to be punished, that you don't have the karma of losing it all after you get it. That's the sort of thing you have to reconcile it with your faith. And of course, Mars moving into your sign means that you must pamper, pamper, pamper. It is time for white linen. It is time for all the massages. It is time to pamper like crazy. You need to be like, what's the name of that beef? Kobe beef? You need to be getting massages and sleeping on mattresses if you were a cow, basically. All right. So I'm looking forward to seeing, and keep treating yourself like gold until I tell you to stop. Geminis. Geminis are now, they have a new way of thinking about how to behave. So you have a new way of behaving, a new way of reacting, a new way of responding to other people. And that mindset of how you're going to respond ahead of time is really important, because I think a lot of times Geminis have no game going out there, no plan. They're just sort of wing it by whatever pops into that Gemini mind. And the universe is saying, no, you need a strategy for your behavior. And then your character sort of needs a mantra. You need to adopt a mantra for your character. It's basically a grand I am statement. This grand I am statement of who you are becoming is the way. This grand I am statement is the way for you. And this grand I am statement must be working well with your career, your spiritual calling, your spiritual promises to God, universe. It must also be working with and reconciled with your legacy and how you intend to retire. Then also with the sextile to Chiron, this grand I am statement must also go along with your social ambition and who you're becoming in the world and who you intend to become in the world. So that's also important, that the grand I am ties into your social reputation. And Mars moving into Taurus means that Geminis will now begin shadow boxing until further notice. Shadow boxing means that your fears or worries may come to the surface, and you are either going to let them get you down or you're going to raise yourself up. So Geminis, your ability to manifest abundance is equal to how much time you spend in fear versus faith. The more time in fear, the less you will make. The more time in faith, the more you will make. Find out for yourself and tell me about it next week. All right. Cancers. The moon children, first of all, have a new idea about spirituality and about God. So Cancers are having basically a new faith in life, a renewed faith in life. Now, my mommy, who's a Cancer, just had a horrible fall, and I've seen her go through this transition where it questioned her faith. It did. So I've seen people like my mom had their faith questioned, and that's what started the conversation. But basically, your mind, it must now be a new mindset, a new idea about your connection to God. Now, your new mantra or your new attitude has to do with your relationship to God. What you have faith in, what you sense. So you have this grand I sense statement, something you sense. Maybe you sense that you're the next Barbara Walters. Maybe you sense that you are here to save the desert. Maybe you sense something like that. And that's what you sense is basically your I think I am statement. All right. That is ultimately the mantra. That is the attitude. What you are sensing is the attitude to adopt. Now that attitude must be reconciled with what you believe. It must be in concert with what you believe. It must be in concert with your life purpose. Your beliefs and your life purpose is your spiritual mission. So your relationship to God and your faith must be 100% in concert with beliefs and philosophies. You also must reconcile and make sure that this new I sense statement goes along with who you are becoming in your career, the changes you are here to make on the earth, the gifts you are here to give the earth. So that I sense statement must be tied into that as well. And with Mars moving into Taurus, It's really time to be your own best friend when you're in public. Be your own best friend when you're in public. You need to support yourself quietly when you're in the company of anyone. All right. Particularly public. If you are your best friend while you're in public, you will manifest abundance. If you are not your own best friend, you will create issues that take away abundance, is my prediction and understanding. So you have full permission to be your own best friend out in the world. All right. Trying not to clear my throat because it's not a good thing. Leos, you basically have a new mindset about your place in society. So you're realizing a different idea about the role you play in society. Most Leos I know and I've talked to off camera are basically telling me it's the role they're going to play in the new Earth. It's the role they're going to play in Earth 3. So it's very logical and consequential, this new role. Many Leos I know are raising the bar on who they are in the world, giving themselves a bit of a promotion, if you will, going from cabin to first class, so to speak, on the spiritual airplane. But where your mantra comes from really is your social and world ambition. Your world ambition, which is basically I belong. That's the mantra statement. I belong. I belong achieving this. I belong making this. I belong creating that. This I belong statement. This is your mantra. This is the summer of love's beat of the drum, that you belong. You have a place that you belong in society, and your heart knows you belong there in society. For me as a Leo rising, by the way, I recently realized I belonged where I thought I didn't belong, because when I went through my pain body, I thought I was being unrealistic. But now that I've cleared my pain body, I now am back to where I believe I belong in society. So it's interesting. Now, that belonging in society must be in concert with boundaries, personal boundaries, sex and intimacy, all the spiritual things you have learned about trust and honor, and where you draw the line and what you allow yourself to do. This new belonging statement cannot get in the way of your life's transformation. It cannot be an excuse for you not to transform your life. It must be in concert with that. The I belong statement must also be in full concert with your character and who you intend to become and your life's purpose, as the sun sextiles Chiron at 22 degrees Aries in your 9th house. So ultimately, it must get along with the purpose and with your personal boundaries. With Mars moving into Taurus, you now really want to support yourself 100% when it comes to following through with decisions you've made for yourself, and also support yourself when it comes to valuing yourself when it comes to self-discipline. So this is a time where if Leos, brush their teeth and tie their shoelaces and cross their T's and dot their I's and take a lot of good time to care for themselves and put themselves in preparation for leadership. So it's sort of like what the king or queen does before they make their royal appearance. Then your self-worth and your career is going to go like crazy. If you fail to show up for yourself or follow through with the commitments you made for yourself, like for instance, I've committed to healing my voice, then you will find a decrease in your ability to manifest abundance or career stuff. Now, that said, self-discipline is going to be easy if you just try. All right. Let's take a drink. Virgo. Virgos now have a new mindset about where they want to lead their life. So they have a new sort of path that their life is taking. This path can be career, but it could also be something on the side. It could be a transformation. It could be, I know a Virgo that's moving. I know a Virgo that's engaged. I know a Virgo that's pregnant. So there's all sorts of ways our future can change. But the mantra is I commit. So Virgos are going to commit to something in the future. That commitment is very powerful. That commitment must be honored. That commitment will happen in a matter of time. I don't know how much time, but that commitment cannot interfere with your long-term relationships that you have going on right now, especially after all the spiritual growth you have had in relationships. That commitment can also not get in the way of partnerships such as marriages or business partnerships. So that commitment to your career and legacy has to work well with your relationships. It must also go along with your personal transformation. You are transforming your character. Virgos are becoming a butterfly right now, which means that you must not allow your career to get in the way of the changes in your life that are happening. They must all work together. With Mars in Taurus, you must be very vigilant about supporting yourself when it comes to believing in yourself. And actions speak louder than words. If you believe in yourself, prove it. Do something that proves it. If you prove that you believe in yourself, you will raise your soul capital and raise your potential to manifest money. If you act like you don't, or hesitate or wane back and forth about believing in yourself, I believe you'll create an unstable economy and have a difficult time manifesting what you want. With that said, you will find that you have the courage if you go ahead and follow through with that belief in yourself. Amen. Libras. Libras, you have a new theory about life, a new idea about life. I've talked to a couple of Libras this week. One was on my Astro Mondays. Actually, it was on my Astro Mechanics on the Human Garage Network on Thursdays. I don't know if you know, I do a show every Thursday at 12 noon, 3 Eastern. Yeah. And I had a Libra come on there, and I talked to a couple of Libras. The Libras do have a new philosophy of life. It is confirmed. So there's a philosophy of life, a new belief about life. But the mantra is basically my purpose. You have a purpose. What your purpose is, your summer of love. You're falling in love with a new calling, a new purpose, a new place where you feel needed, a place where you feel like maybe you can make a difference. So there's a new renewed purpose for the Virgos and the Virgo risings. Now, this purpose, okay, that you are feeling, I mean, Libras and Libra risings. My mind was like, we're not in Virgo, are we? My mind went there. I was thinking about the sign of Virgo. Now, this purpose, Libra, cannot interfere with all the changes you've made in your lifestyle. They cannot go against what you have spiritually learned about work or health or what you do. And this new purpose, this grand purpose, cannot interrupt the lifestyle that you have. This grand purpose also must be in concert with your agreements and partnerships, with your marriages, business partnerships, best friends forever, crochet partner, whatever. It must be in alignment. So being on this purpose must keep life in order and must keep partnerships in order. With Mars in Taurus, right now you're being called to stand up and enforce boundaries with yourself. If you enforce boundaries with yourself, your sense of self-worth is going to rise. If you kowtow and you collapse and not enforce a boundary with yourself, then you will feel your value start to drop right now. And this is literally, by the way, a lot of people say, oh, I have a hard time enforcing boundaries with others. Actually, if you can't enforce a boundary with others, you can't enforce a boundary with yourself. And that's the strength behind a boundary with your others, is a boundary with yourself. So if you're saying, oh, I have problems with boundaries with others, but I don't have problems with the boundaries with myself, that boundary problem with others is a boundary problem with yourself. So let's not project it onto the relationship, shall we, Libra? Let's just look at ourselves. But I do believe that you will find the strength, the ability to speak up, the ability to do it. If you stand up and draw that line and enforce it, not just draw it, but follow through. Scorpio. Scorpio, you have a new idea about sex and boundaries. And this new idea about where to draw the line with others leads to a life transformation. So your transformation mantra is, I am transforming. I am transforming. You are transforming. And that is basically a free spot. That could be transforming your career, transforming your life, transforming your marriage, transforming your studio, but you're transforming. That transformation, however, cannot get in the way of love, creativity, or your relationship to your children. That transformation can also not interfere with your personal dreams and wishes for this lifetime. And that transformation cannot go back and retro back to any old karmic situations. Also, your transformation should not get in the way of the lifestyle you're creating or get in the way of the character you are becoming at work or in your workplace, because you are reinventing yourself in your workplace or in your field. So, as long as your transformation basically supports your heart, supports your karma, and supports your lifestyle, it's the right transformation for you. Now, Mars in Taurus is in the house of mirage, or your mirage area. So you now have the strength to show up for yourself. If you show up for yourself right now, you're going to find that your self-worth actually really rises to a new level. If you do not show up for yourself, you're going to find that you don't value yourself very well. And by the way, showing up for yourself is mostly important in the context of a relationship. So I know you can show up for others in a relationship. The question is, can you, Scorpio, show up for yourself? Alrighty, I'm going to keep lubricating. Sagittarius. Sagittarius, you are now thinking differently about relationships and how you relate to others. I had the pleasure of hanging out with a couple of Sagittariuses that I just absolutely love when I was out in California, and I've noticed that that's true. Those Sagittarius are even relating to me different, and they're talking about relationship changes. That's because your grand I am statement is I am married or I am partnered. So I believe Sagittariuses are going to partner or marry or both in the next year. Summer of Love is pretty much written for you. I think Sagittarius is going to be hooking up like crazy. That includes Sagittarius risings. That does mean that they probably will just suddenly leave and forget to say bye. And then they'll text you a few days later telling you what happened. But this I am partnered or I am married. And by the way, it could be I am married to astrology. It doesn't have to be a person. You could get married to a way of life too, okay? But it's going to be mostly relationships. And if you're in a good relationship with a Sag, you're probably going to be married to new agreements, basically, that you have with each other, vows. Now, this I am married or I am partnered cannot get in the way with how you feel about yourself. It cannot get in the way of your emotional security. It cannot get in the way of your home or your family. So if you are marrying someone, you can't allow that marriage to disrupt your existing home life. All right. Change is not disruption, by the way. Or allow yourself to be upset about your relationships, right? Also, do not allow this commitment to get in the way of your personal dreams and your wishes, or to get in the way of what you create on earth or where you are creative on earth. So basically it's, I am partnered, but I am partnered that's not interfering with my feelings or my home. I am partnered that's not getting in the way of my love life and what I want to do creatively. And with Mars moving into Taurus, it's now time to show up 100% for your health. Okay. You're in a place now where you definitely want to go the extra mile until I tell you when to stop when it comes to your health. That is massages, exercise, stretching, water, hydration, professionals, the whole 9 yards. You will find that you do have the energy to go to the gym. You do have the energy to go do it. It'll be completely in your mind. It won't be a matter of whether or not you have the energy or the strength. It will be there, Miss or Mr. Sagittarius. Capricorn. Capricorn, you have a new way of life when it comes to your daily work and your responsibilities, a new way of going about work, a new way of going about life. This is going to lead to an entirely new lifestyle and a new definition of your quality of life. This is an area that's kind of funny with Capricorns because Capricorns have gone through a lot with Pluto in your sign. You faced every shadow that you have. There's nothing unturned. There's no stone unturned. But most Capricorns I see are still going for the same life that they told me about 10 years ago. I'm hearing the same story about what life they're going to build. And honestly, you would have built it. There's going to be changes now to what that life looks like. Try to stay open-minded to what that life is going to look like. And it's about a quality of a lifestyle, a certain lifestyle that you're here to live. Now, that lifestyle cannot get in the way of your thinking, your business, communications. It cannot get in the way of your attitude or affect the way you communicate or with your big strategies. That new lifestyle can also not get in the way of your home, your family, or your emotional security. You are becoming a new character in the home. You're becoming a new character in the family. So this lifestyle cannot interrupt your home or your family situation. The good news is Mars in Taurus is going to help you with self-love. It's now time to love yourself. And loving yourself, by the way, Capricorn, involves no work, none. Okay. I see Capricorn still struggling with this, where they don't just love themselves. They'll sit there and they'll talk about how things aren't going right, or they're not happy with the way this is going or that going. And it's like, it's not loving of yourself to keep going over and over in your mind the things that aren't working. It's not loving of yourself to sit there and worry over and over about money or success or something else. So, self-love comes down to how you treat yourself when things are going wrong more than it is how to treat yourself when things are going right. But you will have the strength for self-love. And I'm going to tell you right now, and I love this, that God did this to you. Your money is 100% tied to your capacity to love yourself right now. That is the conscious capitalism that we have come to create. And so you must now walk the talk and live enlightened in your heart if you want those sales to come through. All right. Aquarius. I saw a Capricorn on there and I got confused. Aquarius have a new idea about love and creativity. And I am seeing this. I am seeing aquas lighting up. I'm seeing what looks to be love in their eyes. I can actually feel Aquarius is loving me back. I'm not kidding. I've never felt an Aquarius love me back. I've always known they did. Their behaviors show me that they love me, but I couldn't feel it. I'm actually feeling Aquarius's love, which right there tells you we're on the precipice of the age of Aquarius. So you have a new idea about love right now, a new idea about romance, a new idea about personal dreams. But your mantra is, I wish. I wish is your mantra. It's time for you to wish upon a star. That wishing is ascension. If Aquariuses follow what their heart wants, and they all do it worldwide, they can single-handedly, like tent poles, lift the vibration of the earth. You alone are the crystals that have the capacity to lift the vibration of the earth. Now, it's going to get tiring if the other 11 signs don't join the party. However, it all comes from this new I wish. And by the way, wishes are always granted by God. Always. All right? Not always in the same reality, though. That's a tangent. Now, this wishing upon a star cannot go against your money, your finances, or your ability to produce. So do not let your love life or your wishes get in the way of making money right now. That would be a dangerous thing. Stay on the path of making money. You must claim your worth right now with Saturn and also Neptune. You must also claim your abundance. I think it's time for the light workers to make crazy money. I want every light worker to become a billionaire. I want every billionaire on earth to be light workers. I want people to associate wealth with love. Okay. This is the twisting of the wires. I believe they can do this. And you are a walking example of this. It's wired in your chart. Okay. You have spirituality Pisces in your house of money, second house. Now, you must also not allow yourself and your attitude to be disrupted by this I wish for. Don't go moping. Don't fall into your old thinking patterns. Don't, lose your strength of your command of your character. You must make sure that this wish is 100% in alignment with everything your attitude and strategy is. Now, Mars in Taurus is here for Aquariuses to self-nurture. I believe the reason why I'm feeling Aquariuses for the first time is because Uranus is in your fourth house. And so God has made you face your emotional foundation. And now that you can't ignore your feelings, I can't ignore your feelings. So you must make sure that with Mars and Taurus, you nurture your feelings. Just think about like polishing a mirror. Polish, polish, polish. And by the way, if you don't know how to nurture your feelings, it's like take yourself for a walk, get yourself some flowers, draw yourself a bath, put some stuff in that bath water. It is basically the toddler in you. You must care for the toddler in you. If you care for the toddler in you, your self-worth will rise. If you don't care for the toddler in you, you will feel like you are worthless. All right. And then the Pisces. I've been saying that way for 18 years. The Pisces. Gemini, the Pisces. I've got these things. Pisces, you are now having a different idea about your emotional needs. I can think of 3 Pisces right now, maybe 2, 1 Pisces rising, that is moving. And not just moving, out of the country moving. I have Pisces friends moving way away. That's because I think Pisces are sort of moving to higher ground vibrationally because you're opening up. I think you're so empathic. You have to be in an environment that is emotionally nurturing for you. But your grand I think I am is I feel grounded. You must feel grounded. And that feeling of groundedness is the summer of love. That is the magic that makes everything change. If a Pisces can just create their own fishbowl instead of requiring someone else's fishbowl, can you imagine what you could do? So it is all about, I feel grounded. That grounding cannot get in the way of your actions, your behavior, cannot get in the way of your character, cannot get in the way of your plans. So you must also get the job done. It's no excuse, but feelings come first, job second, but they must not be avoided. And here's another sign. You must also not allow your emotional grounding to get in the way of abundance. Right now, Pisces are being told, go get abundance. So I'm seeing all the most light worker signs all being told to go make a whole shift load of money right now. I think it's how we change the values on the planet. Everyone has worshiped money for centuries. So when the worshipers of God suddenly include money, was that it all along? This is a whole topic to talk about. But either way, do not allow this new emotional grounding to get in the way of you making the money you deserve. Now, that said, Mars in Taurus is here to support you in how you talk to yourself. You must now value yourself in all your thoughts. You talk down to yourself, you will lose money. You talk yourself up, you will earn money. Try it, see for yourself. But you are setting standards now that will stick with Uranus and Taurus at 24. So just talk positively to yourself until I come back. And if something goes wrong, treat yourself, Pisces, like gold. All right. Well, friends, couple of things here. For one, we now have sponsors here at Serious Joy. And today's sponsor, of course, is the Lemurian Life Expo. So we're going to actually show you one more little commercial here for the Lemurian Life Expo, a different one you haven't seen before. We're also going to give you the link to it at the end of the show. We'll also run the zodiac weather. And when those 2 videos are done, I will be back with my guest tonight. It's going to be a conversation that you are just going to love. Keep streaming for Jenny Morton coming up. From Saturday, June 8th to Friday, June 14th, 2024. Looking ahead at the weekend forecast, over the weekend, you are taking action to move your new plans forward. Let's drill down. On Saturday, it's sunny, nesting, and resting. Step 18 means Mars rules the day. You're ready to put your ideas into motion. The moon in Cancer says that you are feeling just about everything that's going on. You are thinking proactively. You are turning a manifestation corner with the actions that you do. And Mars now enters into Taurus, which means you have plenty of energy to get the job done. On Sunday, it's sunny and optimistic. Step 19 means that the Earth is ruling the day. This is a natural manifestation day. You are thinking productively and breaking new ground. Also, the moon moves from Cancer into Leo, so you're feeling the future and you're feeling your heart deserving it. But we do have a couple of interesting aspects. The sun will square Saturn, which means your heart must make sure that your mind is in line with your spiritual goal. And Mercury sextiles the North Node in Aries, which means you're also mindful of the way. Looking ahead at the week at the 5-day mood forecast, over the course of the week, we're in the step 20s, which means we're now reaching mastery. And because every degree starts with a 2, your emotions must be reconciled with your mind. On Monday, it's cloudy and cautious. Step 20 means the moon rules the day and the moon is in Leo. So you are thinking passionately from the heart and acknowledging future and the uncertainty of the future. On Tuesday, it's going to be a sunny and ambitious day. Step 21 means it's starting to get fun. Jupiter rules the day, so we are now expanding what we believe in. You are thinking expansively. You're revving up for more self-love. Mars squares Pluto, which means you must reconcile self-worth with self-love. Venus sextiles Chiron, which means you must reconcile and connect to your healing about the future. And we have a 10-hour void of course on this day, so it may feel as though time has stopped. On Wednesday, hump day, it is cloudy but awkward. Step 22 means Uranus rules the day. You are thinking today timelessly and opening up to a new dimension of thinking about the future. Mercury squares Saturn, so the mind is reconciling with one's spiritual path. And the moon moves from Leo into Virgo, which means those dreams begin to become real. On Thursday, it's cloudy but focused. Step 23 is a Grandmaster Mercury-ruled day in Gemini. You are thinking you understand. You are finding your footing. The sun now sextiles Chiron, so now the heart is reconciling and connecting to the possibilities of unlimited potential for the future. Mercury joins a little later, so the mind and heart are both now on the same page. And then on Friday, it's sunny and determined. Step 24 means Venus rules the day. I am thinking creatively, experiencing inner liberation. And with Mercury conjoining the sun, the heart and the mind are on the exact same page.
It's serious joy, joy, joy.
Hello and welcome to ASTRO Mingle, the spiritual podcast that mingles with the supernova lightworkers and pioneering influencers of our modern times. With all the spiritual growth we've been facing this last year, our spiritual energy is having a dramatic effect on our bodies, and many people are going through what we call ascension sickness. Today's guest is a perfect understanding of what may be going on. After a long career as a professional dancer, singer, and actor that began at the age of 5, Jenny Morton is now an osteopath, specializing in the fields of performing arts medicine and psycho-physiology. Can't wait to find out what that's about. She uses an integrated approach that seeks an answer to deeper questions that lie beneath the expressions of certain symptoms, guiding people on a journey to the self. Her in-person sessions involve hands-on treatment using osteopathic manual therapy to address a wide range of issues, and she offers online services that encompass stress management, nervous system, re-education, movement training, and much more. Please send me some waves of love and light and join me in bringing that love and light and gratitude to my guest tonight, Step 26, Libra, Jenny Morton. Hello. Hi.
Hello. Hi, good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming.
Pleasure.
And the story goes, you were very kind and reached out. I mean, do you want to tell that story yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I've been listening to you for a long time and have been sort of tracking as someone who works with voice. I can't help it. I'm just always listening for the little kind of poker tells in the voice. And I was like, what's going on there? And I kind of see it was getting a little more and more precarious as time was going on in the recent weeks. And I'm not usually one that reaches out. I'm kind of like, I'm sure he's got somebody that takes care of that. I'll just hang back and observe. And it got to last Friday, Namaste today. And I was like, I'll find a way to just drop a message, just put it out there. If I can be of help, then I'll jump in. And so, yeah, we got to meet yesterday for a
It was
quick.
great. She was so gracious and dear. And I just want to also show the audience that, like, yes, I do eventually take care of myself, but I'm learning how to. So I really appreciate it. And I have to say, your energy is remarkable. You have a fascinating story. And I want to know, everything about your practice and share what you do. She did some great work with me, helping me with posture and other things. And I'm practicing it right now, at least the best I can. But your story starts like when you were a child, like age 5, acting. Tell us a little about that. You were telling me yesterday about what you were observing as a child on the set.
Yeah, so I come from a theatrical and kind of TV family. My mom was a Royal Ballet trained dancer and had her own school. And so
Wow.
apparently I was 14 months old when I did my first ballet class, because she would plot me at the side. And as soon as I was on my feet, I was joining in. So I was already being immersed in sort of dance training. But my dad worked at the BBC. He's a TV director. When I was, very young, he was what's called a vision mixer, but he worked on Monty Python, Fawlty Towers, every classic British sitcom, game show. He was sort of the primetime TV director, really, of the 70s, 80s, 90s. So weekends for me were up at the BBC, plonked in the studio, watching what was going on. And of course, I'm seeing very well-known people of the day, as I say, in their natural habitat, right? So I've always felt like I was a bit of an observer of life, like the world is my field experiment. And I would sit watching these people. I knew what the public persona was. And then I would see how they were behaving on set. And some people were very lovely, other people had some work to do in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would just be like, oh, what is this disconnect? And why are so many of them so terrified? I could just feel the fear, as a lot of these big primetime BBC, sort of Friday, Saturday night shows were all filmed in front of a live studio audience. They weren't necessarily broadcast live, but it was in front, it was kind of theater feel, right? A live audience there. And I would just, feel the sort of tension mounting as the sort of showtime approached, and see all the behaviors kicking off. So I've been a behavioral analyst from a very early age and understood this kind of mask of performance.
So
okay, that
I just got a light bulb just went off, like, you got an education from early on about how people are one thing and pretend to be another.
Yes.
That's amazing. Yeah. Okay. That's
now
brilliant.
People would say to me, oh, so-and-so, oh, they're so amazing, they're so lovely. And I'd be like, okay. Not kind of what I'm seeing back here, but that's what you're seeing there. So,
right.
And then even, all our family friends were artists and very kind of theatrical beings. And it was like they would never switch off. I'm like, why are you acting to me? Hi, how are you? And it was all this. I used to sit and think, this is so exhausting being around you people. It's like a constant kind of everything's acting. Why are you not comfortable to be yourself? Or others that were themselves were just complete kind of introverts. It's this elasticity of the performer being very extrovert on stage or on camera, but often very introvert in their personal lives and almost monosyllabic, people who were very verbose kind of, comics and, a lot of repartee and all of that, but the most boring people off camera.
Oh yeah. Without a script. Yeah.
Without a script and without.
It's common. It's very common, but I think it's a different skill set, ultimately. So where were you leading with that? I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine. So I and then at 5, I did my first acting job. My mum used to do sort of little acting work as well as teaching, and so she put me on with her agent. We got my pictures done when I was little, and lots of mother and daughter kind of work. And I did my first film acting job for a German television, teaching Germans how to speak English, which is interesting. But I always heard this story about how the director had said, "Oh, she takes direction so well." I was just so primed with being on a film set all the time. I just knew exactly how that worked, how to work with the camera and all that stuff. And then at age 7, I went to full-time theatre school in England, where you do half a day doing your sort of academic studies, and the other half of the day is dance, acting, singing, music. So I was immersed very early on in that. And then when I was 8, I got a part with a ballet company who they were doing a new production, and they needed a child. There was a child role in this particular production. And I got the role and was performing from the age of 8 through 13. So for 5 years, I was doing this big role, signing autographs at the stage door at the age of 8, and well known in the ballet world, not necessarily in the more public world, and touring. So I was in and out of school, touring the country, international tours, and 2 or 3 London seasons a year. So again, then I was just me as a kid amongst all these adult professionals and seeing how this all works, and again seeing all the personalities. So it was like an even deeper experience of that.
And so you were this, if I interject, you were so you're a Grandmaster Libra, you're a Master Libra. So I think you have past lives of having lots of relationships with lots of people and getting to know people. Did you observe that you had a little bit of wisdom about people, even as a young girl, and how each person was relating in the games they were playing in relationships?
Totally.
It's interesting how light workers develop. I think that's what's interesting about your story. Like, how do you develop into this? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I never understood what the human thing was. I came into this world going, so is this what we're doing? Okay. Kind of seems interesting. And just never really, understood that, I just knew I didn't quite fit in this thing. And I had to play a role to be accepted and not to be shunned from the tribe. So, my parents were wonderful, loving people, but I still kind of felt a bit like, okay, so this you're my mum. Okay, that's how this works. And so I always had this slight sort of separation and dissociation, and I also really didn't sleep as a child, which is kind of interesting, because as soon as I closed my eyes, I'm literally in the field, in the pixels of the field, and I would go through these kind of animated, kind of like those old kaleidoscopes we used to have as kids. It was kind of like that, but animated and very pixelated at a very fine level, going through kind of wormholes and tunnels and all these colors that don't even exist on this planet. And I just used to be kind of tortured by these existential questions of like, but if this is the universe, where's the edge of it? And where do we fit in the whole thing? And that was every night as a child, just that. And then I would sort of come back to earth in the morning and go, okay, now we're doing this thing, and then I'm in this place. So I've always had this sort of elasticity between this perceived reality and this whole other thing, which I didn't really speak about because I kind of figured that this wasn't the norm and that people would kind of be a bit, and somehow I had connection to a level of wisdom. I remember my mum at one point saying to me, I think I was 14, and I have an older sister, and she was doing the rebel teenager thing and all of that. And I was saying, oh, this is so childish. And I just did, She said, you're 14 going on 40. And it wasn't until I hit 40 that I actually felt like this is the age I always was. I now kind of have the chronological age to match the kind of level of wisdom, if you want to call it that, or just, ability to perceive the bigger picture of what's going on. And
when you say your Earth is strange to you, are you, referencing that you're a starseed then, you feel?
I think so. I mean, who knows? I do deep
Not to out you.
research into. No. And this is something that I've explored. And so I have a story that I can share that fits that was shared with me by a psychic. Just to put the caveat in that I think down here on Amnesia Planet, we have no idea, so
Yeah.
I've got these stories that help me navigate my place here and give me some sort of GPS reference points to help me figure out my place. But I'm perfectly prepared for when I skip off this little spinning ball of wax that I'll go, oh, I had no idea. Completely got it wrong. That was a complete fabrication.
Right,
but it's like we create these kind of stories and mythologies that just help us navigate.
Yeah.
And if that's all they do, they're great. So yeah, the one story that resonated with me that was only really sort of 6 months ago that I had this
I was going to say.
session.
Yeah.
I'd come up with my own sort of, ideas and theories. But when I spoke with this reader, it just kind of landed, and it's just like a felt sense of, feels, And she said, the first thing she said when I got on the call with her, and it was just a phone call, there was no video, she couldn't see me. She was in Wisconsin somewhere, I've never met the lady. And she said, oh, you don't belong here. And I went, oh, thank you. Just like the validation, like, oh, you don't belong here. And she said, she sort of channeled from her guides and my guides that I'm from Sirius, which is very interesting that I was already Sirius.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
You can't be serious.
I can be serious.
Interesting. Well, then maybe that's where we've met.
Possibly. Yeah.
Well, I find it interesting because I find like when you have like really wise souls who are coming here probably to seed the earth with new energy, I feel like they come in very adult-like you have, actually not connected to the heart per se and love and joy per se and being a child. Like a lot of light workers I noticed don't really end up having childhoods. They don't play, they don't have fun. It's like something you learn over time to bring in because you need to. I also feel like Earth has got the joy pedal cranked up as far as enjoyment. I think we're getting used to that as a feature in multidimensional reality. It's like, oh, that's a feature now. Like they've got this new thing called emotions on Earth. You should try it. It's a total trip. But anyways, it's interesting when you say it sort of resonates in that regard. But even when I was a child, I wake up in the middle of the night feeling like I don't belong here. Like I'm not home, like something, this would be in my bed with my parents, in my bed living with my parents. So, well, moving on to your own personal creative expression, how did you move from being an artist to being, I guess, a healer? Would you describe yourself as a healer? I guess tell us what Osteopath is, and then how would you describe yourself?
Yeah, because osteopaths are different in the rest of the world to here in the US. So we're very much sort of hands-on practitioners working with the joints, the muscles, the fascia, connective tissue, but also taking in the emotional, the environmental, seeing the person not as a set of symptoms, but as a person with the body expressing in a particular way, and then looking at all the jigsaw pieces that are contributing to that. And obviously as a dancer, you have a lot of physical issues, right? And actually when I was at dance college, I was 17 and I was kind of in my last year of training as a dancer, about to hit the profession. And I had a horrible injury. I had shin splints to the point where I could barely walk, let alone dance.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't know, how to deal with this. But as we know, the body is the teacher. And by serendipity or synchronicity, a sign went up on the college notice board saying, final year osteopathy student, former dancer, doing her thesis on shin splints in dancer, needs volunteers.
Wow. Literally written for you. Yeah.
Totally written for me. So I went along and as a final year osteopathy student, whenever they do sort of sessions with someone, they have a lot of the junior students observing. So it's kind of like a teaching session. So I was sort of learning as I was being examined. And she literally sort of had me, they have you strip down to your underwear and stand, just stand in one position. And she kind of shredded my posture, and all I was doing was standing upright. She said, oh, weight's shifted too far forwards and center of gravity's off and da, da, da. And I was like, I've been in full-time dance training for 10 years at this point, and not one teacher has ever picked up on this stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And so she got me back on my center, which has much deeper significance than just a physical thing. And got me so that my balance was effortless. I was finding I was struggling with everything. Everything was such an effort. And when you find your center, it's like, oh, my hip joints freed up and my, flexibility came in, and I could just, and then I worked with her for about 3 months. I think I used to go like 3 times a week. And she really sort of completely re-educated my map of center for myself, which as a dancer should obviously help with that. But it also, helped me find more of my identity, the GPS coordinates of me, rather than going, this is me, no, this.
Yeah.
And then I was known in my dance career. I went straight out of college. I finished college on the Friday. On the Monday, I started with a ballet company, and I was kind of known for my balance. I just was the one that could hold the poses, could do all the multiple turns and things on the spot without falling over. And it was because of her. So that kind of sowed the seeds. I was like, oh, this osteopathy thing, if not one dance teacher had kind of pulled out these gems, I want to know more about that. So it was kind of there. And then I went through a sort of ballet career, and then I moved into musical theatre, West End stuff. And every show I did, I used to become the unofficial company masseur. I just kind of had, because I just loved observing bodies and the way things moved. And I'd learned so much working with this osteopath and hearing her talk to the other students. It's like I was the student too. And so I would spot things in other people and go, oh, well, that's because of this, and that's because of this. And then people would, have me sort of, oh, will you do my neck before the show? I'll trade you a bottle of wine for doing my neck before the show, that kind of thing. And then people will say, you should train in this, you're good at it, you should train in it. So I initially trained as a sports massage therapist, which is kind of massage therapy, but it's kind of specific to particular injuries. So it's kind of a little deeper than just the sort of holistic massage, while I was still in theatre. So I would go around all the theatres in the West End during the day and treat people, and then go into my theatre and do my show at night. So I always blended the two, because what I'd found was missing as a performer, either as a dancer, and by that time I was singing as well, 'cause doing musical theatre. When you go to regular practitioners who don't understand that world, they, most artists' injuries are not, I fell over and smacked something, like sports have more of those kind of what we call the traumatic acute injuries, where you run into somebody or get hit by something. It's normally something that's built over many years, that's either in your technique, or it might be the particular repertoire you're doing in a show. In West End, you're doing 8 shows a week, the same choreography over and over and over. And if all the kicks with the right leg, suddenly the right hamstring's getting cranky because it's getting overworked. So unless you get to that, you're not only treating symptoms, you're not treating cause. And I would go to people for treatment, and they would say things, the favorite line, oh, you need to rest. It's like, I have 8 shows a week, and if I'm not on stage, I ain't getting paid. So you need to help me get back on stage, not just tell me to rest. So I started to figure out, well, you need an understanding of dance technique, voice technique, to be able to help people reprogram the behavior that's leading to the expression of symptoms at the other end. So I wanted to plug that gap. So that was why I trained as a massage therapist at first. And then as I started to get, I think, my early 30s, I was getting to the stage of, I still loved performing, but it was the treadmill of auditions. And then I got a show, and then it closed after 3 months, and now I'm back on the heap again, and, all my friends who are not in the arts were like, I've got a home and a mortgage and a pension and a thing. And I'm like, I'm still living,
still starving artist or whatever. Yeah.
Waiting for the next show to come along. And so I wanted something deeper. And I also, as a massage therapist, I was seeing all these things where I was like, I've reached my limit of how I can help this person. And I was referring everyone on to osteopaths.
Okay.
Maybe I should do that. But it's like a 5-year training. So I had to find a time in my life where that was going to fit. And that kind of came in my early 30s, where I decided, I think I'm going to transition away from regular theatre. And again, serendipitously, I've had a lot of serendipity in my life, which I'm very grateful for. I got offered a job singing with a big band, a 20-piece swing band, which was typically Thursdays through Sundays gigs, and the rest of the time is, your own. And we had sort of once a week rehearsals originally, but after a while you just show up and do so it's a very sort of small commitment of time. And I was like, I have some space to do something now. So I decided to take the plunge and do the osteopathy degree. So I was still performing. So I've had some crazy experiences where I've, been in lectures for 8 hours, and then everyone else is like, I'm going home to, sit and, stare at the wall for a bit, after 8 hours of physiology and chemistry and goodness knows what. And I'd be like, I'm off to a gig, and I'd be going on stage at 10:30 at night till 1 a.m. and then bed and then up for the lectures the next morning. But I wasn't ready to let that go. Identity. My identity was I'm a performer, and I couldn't, the thought of going, I don't do that anymore. When people say to you, oh, what do you do? And you say, oh, I'm a West End performer, or I'm a lead singer of a big band. They're like, oh, you get applause. Oh, interesting. If you say, I'm an osteopath, they go, what's that?
Right.
There's this deflation of like, who am I? I don't have any status anymore, which is all ego nonsense. But yeah, so I was kind of doing the two, but it also meant because I was still treating professionally as well, because I was still a massage therapist, and I was working by then at a performing arts medicine clinic. So everyone's heard of sports medicine, but performing arts medicine is the equivalent, but for dancers, musicians, instrumentalists, vocalists, actors. And so if I'm treating a cellist or a violinist, they bring their instrument to the session. We're going to look at, well, how are you interfacing? This is why, because your shoulder is a little bit internally rotated, or your bowing arm's too high. We need to drop this down. So you have to get to the cause and see what they're doing. So I was already working in a performing arts medicine clinic while training as an osteopath, and still performing, which gave me the trust. Because one of the things when treating artists, if you go to someone for treatment and they say, oh, what do you do? I'm a sax player, or I'm a ballet dancer. And they go, oh, and you immediately go, oh, well, you can't help me. You don't get me. If you're like, oh, isn't that interesting? It's like, well, you know nothing about me then. So there's a lot of kind of distrust from artists, and they don't tend to go and seek out help until they're absolutely in bits. But if they come to someone who gets it, and they come in and say, I'm a sax player, I'm like, oh, you play tenor, baritone, sop? Are you doubling on clarinet? Okay, what's your working conditions? Are you driving to the gigs? Are you carrying all your gear? It's like, oh, you get me, you get my world. And as we all know, that the therapeutic bond of trust is the healing. Whatever I tinker with my hands, if that's not present, then you're on a road to nowhere. So it kind of gave me the validity in their eyes, like, oh, she's been there and done it. And I've pretty much been there and done it in all aspects of the arts. So I could speak the language. And then I sort of, as I qualified as an osteopath, I then continued on at the Performing Arts Medicine clinic, but as an osteopath, but was still performing with my band as well. So I didn't stop that until I moved to the US, which was in 2014.
So as a person who obviously your clientele is mostly people who require their body for a living, like that it is their instrument that is a part of their instrument. So tuning the instrument. And I have to say, yesterday I learned a lot. One of the things that you had talked about with me was just, finding that center.
Yes.
Would you share a little bit of that with our audience, as far as, because what you made me realize was I haven't been like sitting straight up and aligning the biggest takeaway I had that I thought was powerful. One of the biggest was just that my chakras aren't straight up, that my posture and everything, to have your chakras in a row all the way from your crown up seems to be a big part of it. But, and that really shifted me instantly, made me aware. But tell us about the being in your center.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, it's not just I'm all about smudging lines in the sand. We've kind of drawn a lot of artificial lines in the sand: mind, body, right? Physical, emotional. Identity is separate from how you hold your body, but it's not, and a lot of this comes from actor training. A lot of the stuff that I use to help actors develop character and roles is the same that I'm often helping people with who've just got back pain. And I'm like, but it's because you're not living your truth. I see symptom expression in the body as the degree to which you've deviated from truth. And the body's just trying to course correct you. It's going, get back. And we're going, well, let's switch that off with some painkillers and put a Band-Aid on that. And it's like, no, it's information. Inflammation is information. Listen, the bodies don't just mute your body, otherwise it'll need to yell. So the louder the symptoms, the more it's because you're going la 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 la, not happening, or you're not answering the question that's being posed. I always say it's not about finding answers, it's about asking better questions. If you're not getting symptom resolution, ask better questions. And that's the same with me as a practitioner. If someone's coming back and we're like, we're not shifting it, what's going on? I need to re-ask the question. I used to train medical students, and I would always say, the moment you think you know what you're doing, get another job. Because if you stop questioning, you're going to miss something.
Right.
So coming back to this idea of center, typically, if you are oriented over center, just from a very kind of biomechanical perspective, if your head is oriented over your pelvis, the head weighs about 12 pounds in the average person. It's a heavy bit of kit. If your head's oriented over your pelvis, it's effectively weightless. I use the analogy, if you had a tennis ball on your head and your head's over your pelvis, you don't need to strap the tennis ball down, right? It's just on balance. For every inch your head comes off center, and for most people that's forwards, particularly with phones and computers and the life we live. For every inch your head comes forwards from that center of gravity, the effective weight doubles. So if you've got somebody with kind of tech neck here, they've got about 48 pounds of weight hanging off all these muscles that are then having to grip to hold you up, rather than just being in effortless, gravitational, let the earth hold you up, not your muscles hold you up. So if you were in that position, the tennis ball would hit the floor. Well, what stops your head from hitting the floor? It's muscles contracting to counter the weight. So you're already draining your battery life at that point. You were talking earlier, as I was listening in, about kind of energy expenditure in people, and that why am I feeling drained? And people are often looking for things that they've done to add up to why am I this tired? But it could just be you were off center that day and your body had to burn a lot more power and drain a lot more of your battery life just to hold you up that day because you were slumped over, versus if you were here, it would be much more energy efficient. I always say my job is just to create efficiency for people. How little effort do you have to expend to get the job done? If you're hanging out like this, well, you're already expending way more effort than you need to, plus you're going to actually affect change in the tissues, because if the muscles are having to contract like that habitually, if this is a habitual posture that you do, the brain's going to go, you know what, this is taking too much energy, it's inefficient. We're going to, if you want to hold your muscles in that position, we're going to shorten them and thicken them in that position, which is why I challenge anyone out there, if you prod the muscles around the back of your shoulders here, and then maybe prod your thigh muscles or your arm muscles, they're made of the same stuff. And you'll probably find the thigh muscles are kind of nice and juicy and elastic, and this feels like old boot leather, right? Because if your head's forwards a lot, you're literally you're changing the fibrous consistency of the muscle so that it holds you there without burning a contraction. Efficient, but now that muscle crosses all your neck joints, so now you can't look over your shoulder anymore and everything's stiffened up. And we're getting issues with the fluid exchange in the body, and particularly from the brain, the drainage, and again, as you were referring to there, the chakra alignment, so that there's just communication available between all these things. The body is just like a communication network. It's an intelligence network.
Yeah.
It's not like this, for those who kind of tend to channel information. I would say we're always doing that, really. The idea that we have to trap information in our head and hold on to it. It's like you've got a massive external hard drive out here. You don't have to hold on to it.
Oh, I know.
Learn the fluidity of bringing it in and being able to call it in at will. Or
yeah.
trust that it will come. But it's information. It doesn't like come into your head and then stop. The body is a continuation of that information intelligence network. I make a distinction between intellect and intelligence. Intellect is more the sort of acquired facts that we've gleaned and put into storage, versus the intelligence, which is that kind of granular information, and the wisdom and those sorts of things. And the body is intelligent, and often the intelligence goes against the intellect, and this is where we get that disconnect again you were mentioning earlier. Mind, thoughts versus feelings, and that we tend to thoughts, we're going to like hang on all the thoughts and give them value, and the feelings, they're symptoms to be either ignored or switched off. It's like, no, that's intelligence. It's information. You might not like it, but it's information. And one of my other sort of mantras is, again, weird doing what I do for a living, is there is never anything wrong with the body, ever. That's
really
arrogance based out of our ignorance. We are just simply not asking good enough questions. The body's and we don't speak the language of the body, or we have kind of a disconnect with the language of the body, and it's speaking French and you don't speak French, and it's going, I'm shouting in French, and you're going, I don't get it, well, shut up, So I find myself in the position of an interpreter. You mentioned earlier, do I see myself as a healer? It's another term I've wrestled with over the years, because I don't heal anything. People come to me, you're going to fix my back. So I'm not going to fix anything. I'm going to help create the conditions where that is available to you and most optimal for the body to get there. But you're going to do it. So that sort of idea of outsourcing yourself to someone else, it's not something I kind of, my job is to make myself redundant. if people need to keep coming back, I haven't done my job. It's not a great business model, but so I kind of deviated around a lot there. But coming back to what you asked originally, which was about the self and the alignment, finding the center. If you are physically aligned, it is the nervous system doesn't have to. The more we deviate from our kind of gravitational efficiency point, our kind of balance center point, the body's going, well, we're falling. Control. I would say we're just in controlled falling all the time. So that's actually going to run a bit of the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight mechanism. And people often label that as the sort of anxiety, fear, panic thing, which it is at its extreme end, but it's a spectrum. And it's just the sympathetic nervous system, which is what gets you out of bed in the morning. It's like, I've got to get something done. It's a system of mobilization. So if you are in a less efficient posture, then stuff has to happen. It has to be organized. So we're getting busy already, and we're coming up into that sort of sympathetic bandwidth. So when we find that center, it's a much calmer place. We're coming out of the sort of fear spectrum and back to calm. And it's only in that true, what we call parasympathetic state, the rest and digest state, that we turn down the volume and we can actually hear ourselves. And I think a lot of people don't hang out there very often. I kind of feel like society has shifted us so much. I use the analogy of a piano keyboard, and you've got the lowest note, the highest note, and middle C. And so middle C should be your kind of just present, chilled, in myself, and then we go up the higher notes into sheer panic at the top of the piano. The bottom of the piano is complete checkout, right?
Melodrama at the bottom.
Yeah, or just like complete checkout. I'm just not even present anymore, right? So
Right.
it's like a system of mobilization. A lot of people are so shifted up that top end because life is this and it's stress and it's and it's, busy, busy, busy. The body habituates to everything, right? We habituate. If you live under a flight path of the airport, somebody comes to your house and they're like, oh my God. And you're like, oh, I didn't even notice. You get habituated to things. So if you are up that, fully mobilized end of the nervous system all the time, you become habituated to it, such that you forget. You now think that middle C is what used to be the complete checkout, and you've shifted middle C to up here somewhere, so you're only using a quarter of the piano keyboard. And so you've forgotten what that feels like to be in neutral.
Yeah.
And that for me is also a deviation from the self. And what I see with this kind of race, rat race kind of life that has been happening over the last sort of half century, I guess, the speed increasing, is that everyone's got their goal about what I want to do, what I want to achieve, what I want to have. And then they've created themselves this great kind of, map, this breadcrumb trail that's going to get them there. But I'm like, if you don't know your starting coordinates, those two things are no good to you. You can have the best map in the world. You want to know where you get to, but if you don't know where you're starting, doesn't work. And so that's where I see a lot of people like, I had this whole goal and this thing and it all failed, and and it's like all you needed was the starting point. Because if you know the starting point of self, you might find, well, that path wasn't for me anyway.
Right.
A whole different set of options are available to you. So when you start to find the physical self, where the nervous system can go, okay, we're all good, we can dial down, the noise goes down enough where you can actually start to connect with the felt, because the sense of self is a feeling, it's not a thought, it's not a checklist of facts, it's a felt sense.
Yes.
That when you have that, you can carry that anywhere in the world, and I was a very hypersympathetic, dominant kind of person.
Me too.
I didn't have that for a long time. And then I really kind of made that a big focus of finding that, to the point that I was like, you can airlift me and drop me anywhere in the world, and I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. I don't have that kind of fear reflex that I used to completely live by, because I thought that was my middle C, right? My middle C was so shifted up.
I think your point, let me interject for a second. Your point's really well taken, in the sense that I feel like we've lost control of our government, of where things are going. Things have been out of hand. Like, society has started to decay because we are living in that high frequency mania that you're describing. Each of us, television is designed to keep you in that mania. I've worked for television. It's designed, the commercial. Yes,
it is.
It's a hook. It's keep them wired. They got to know. They have to know. And it seems like everything in society is pushing us to stay in that mania.
Yeah.
And you're right. When you're in that fight or flight, high nervous system mania, there's so much you don't notice inside yourself, especially that he's lying to you.
Yes.
Or I think she's got another agenda, or I don't know if this is the best thing for me. So, what you're teaching, I think, is really profound, because at least I know in America, we have forgotten how to stand back in our center. We've lost our center. And meeting you is fascinating, because I was catching myself out of it, bringing myself back to it, just, time and again. But I've had so many events happen in the last 6 months, extraordinary events that are not normal to my normal life, that just kept putting me, my first response would be to go back into that hunched over, short breath, not connected to my root chakra, on the go, but not knowing where.
Yes. Yeah. And we do become habituated, as we talked about, to things that are not helpful for us. Is one of the things common things I often get, when I actually show people and kind of cue the body into, this is neutral. Your shoulders don't sit here, they sit here. And they're like, wow, but this is the most
manual.
It's like, this is the most efficient place. But they're like, but it feels like so much work. And I'm like, yeah, because if you've hung out here, the body molds itself to that shape.
Yeah.
As I already described, the tissue actually changes consistency, particularly the fascia, because the fascia is just the most beautiful, intelligent tissue that is so much wiser than we can ever, I bow to it when I'm hands-on with, so I just bow to people's fascia.
I'd like
You
to know
tell
more.
me.
I'd like to know more about that. I got a friend who's also fascinated by the same topic.
Fascinated. Yeah, I mean, it's just my reverence for the fascia has come, and I get so annoyed where I see all these fascia busters and all these, like people beating their fascia into submission. It's like, no, it's such an intelligent tissue, and it's got so much rich information for you. And for me, it's also because it's a crystalline structure that works on piezoelectric kind of effect. It's not like a muscle that contracts and releases. It changes its consistency under friction, and it has this sort of quartz crystalline consistency. So if you are finding, tension in a particular area of the body or feeling restriction, and it's fascial, and you need a good practitioner to be able to distinguish whether is that a muscle that's causing that, is it fascial, because they need completely different approaches. If the fascia has kind of thickened itself, so it doesn't contract and shorten, it actually changes consistency and becomes thickened under load. So the common one that I get all the time is the IT band, the iliotibial band, which is the band that runs from your hip to your knee down the side of the thigh. People coming in and say, I've got a tight IT band. I'm like, no, you haven't. It's not contractile tissue. It can't be tight. It has thickened itself, because typically what's happening with most people, they've got pelvic instability, and their pelvis is kind of sloshing around as they walk, or they sink into one hip when they stand, and you're putting pressure on it. It has thickened. I always say it hasn't done it to spite you. If you load it, it's going to thicken to protect you. It's the same mechanism that if you always lean on an elbow, you'll get a patch of rough skin, right? The bits of our foot that hit the floor or not, we have the dry, thicker tissue. So it's a protective mechanism. I'm like, don't beat the thing into submission, change the behavior. Don't keep prodding it with a stick and expect it to change, to soften. Stop doing the thing that's making it thicken. Then it doesn't have to do it, and it will change its consistency accordingly. It is an intelligent tissue. So we tend to sort of, again, intellectually override the intelligence of the body. So it's coming back to this idea of kind of center and self. You can hear a lot more. And I encourage people to start having conversations with their body and actually training yourself to listen. I do it at the end of every day. Before I go to bed, I just kind of lie down and I go, okay, who needs to yell? Who didn't I listen to today? Who did I override without permission? And, and when you first do it, you'll just get crickets and you'll feel a bit stupid. But after a while, you'll start to get information. It's like if you've got pain in an area, if you've got tension in an area, ask it. Okay, what's your story?
Fascinating. That's fascinating. I love this, where you're going with this. And even what I've learned about fascia from a buddy of mine at Human Garage named Gary Lyman is like, even when you're injured, doesn't your fascia, like on the other side of your body, will like stiffen to sort of like help like hold you up. Like, so sometimes fascia has thickened and strickened to actually try to compensate for an injury somewhere else. And then it doesn't let go necessarily per se, correct? It has to sort of be, how do you relax the fascia in those cases? How do you relax that line from the butt to the knee, or whatever you're saying, like from the back?
Yeah, and that's the thing. You have to understand the architecture of the body. And it's kind of, the thing when people come to me, I've got a shoulder issue. All right, I'm going to have a look at your I've got a right shoulder issue. Right, I'm going to start at your left foot. And they're like, I'm going to use your foot.
That's fascinating.
Trust me. But the body's fractal as well. You can blind test me on anyone's foot. I always start at the feet for everyone, because just working all the joints of the feet, we've got 26 bones in the foot. It's so many joints there. And it's like a mini body. The body is a fractal. It's just repeating patterns. So the foot will give me a quick read on the whole body. So I'll be like, oh, okay, so you've got, your left jaw, your right hip, just from what I find in the foot. And then I go on my journey up the body and kind of validate what I found in the foot. But
you find in the foot that they have a shoulder problem. I just want to reiterate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how does that come across? Is it a communication, or is it just the way the foot's responding to you? It's a way of reading feet by touch.
Yeah, it's the movement of the individual joints in the foot that are analogous
Wow.
to, they're like mini versions of other joints
Wow.
of the body.
That's brilliant.
When you're kind of, I just speak body, I can just hear it. I have synesthesia as well, which is a smudging of the senses. So I can, sounds have colors. Everything to me has texture sort of in my teeth. And so as I'm working, I'm like that's bound up there. And it's crunchy. It's not, is it crunchy peanut butter or is it smooth peanut butter? Right. All that I have so many, the synesthesia allows me so many jigsaw pieces of information that's like so many reference points that I can zoom in. And coming back to my childhood nocturnal wanderings through the fabric of the
Right. I was just thinking of that.
Because I don't see the body as ending at the definition of the boundary of the skin.
Where do you see it? Yeah.
It is, we are an extension of the field. So if we think of screen that we're on right now, people watching, they're seeing you and they're seeing me, these sort of distinct shapes. I'm looking at the pixels that make up those images.
Right.
So I see everything at a granular pixelated level, including the person and the field around them. And so I can see, and I can hear it as well because of the synesthesia. Even someone standing behind me, I'm like, their T3 is rotated to the left. It's like it's noise.
To be in the head of you, that's funny.
I know people always say, I wish I had all that stuff. I'm like, no, you really don't. It's noisy. It's very noisy. And I've learned to, you were mentioning, I'm a Libra, you were mentioning boundaries earlier. And I was like, I have to be very, very disciplined about boundaries. Otherwise it's very noisy. But essentially I can see the sort of almost the echo in the field, because we're not separate from the field. We are it. We are made of the same pixels or voxels because they're volumetric, spherical, toroidal shapes at the Planck level. This is getting into kind of quantum biology now. We're all made of those, as are the planets, which is why I have this interest in astrology, because it's the same mechanics. Again, it's fractal. The foot tells me everything about the whole body. Well, the body is just a fractal version of the solar system of the planets.
Yeah.
As you're talking about the influences of the planets, I'm seeing the ripples they make in the field, or the interference patterns that are coming out that then come into it.
Right.
So it's that idea does a fish know it's in water? Is a planet separate from the field around it, or is it just a density within? And I use the analogy of, if a fish is swimming in water, it's like, is it aware of the water? It just is.
Right.
If you came upon a whirlpool in the water, which is water, you wouldn't say a whirlpool is something other than the water. It's just a spin in the water. So as the fish approaches this spinning bit of water, at first it's going to feel repulsion, right? It's going to feel like a push back, and you're going to go, that's a thing. But all it is a swirl in the space. So that's all we really are, is a swirl in the space that we go, this is matter, this is spirit. But it's really not at the pixel level. It's not. It's just a density of those pixels that are enough that it appears to be solid. So this is the idea that everything is energy, frequency, vibration. Right. And therefore everything that's emanating from you, be it, emotional turmoil, physical kind of blocks, are reflected in the water, the field around you, and are therefore affecting other people. And we all know this. If we're around somebody that's really kind of grumpy, you're going to feel, you're feeling it, so we are all sharing the same pool. And I always say, don't pee in your own bathwater, right? We're all sharing it, please. And if there's somebody up one end splashing like this, you're going to be like, oh, could you stop with the splashing?
Right.
I want to be up the end with the cool cats where it's all nice and calm, so seeing the field in that way, but also the body in that way. Where's their disturbance? Where is their incoherence? Where are the ripples in the field? Where's the unstructured splashing versus the nice coherent ring waves coming out from somewhere? So that's kind of coming back to this idea of the fascia. The fascia is in long kind of strips throughout the body that contain so many different structures, from muscles to bones to organs to, I mean, everything is coated in the stuff, even a muscle that has the fascial bag around it. But if you look at a microscopic level, every single filament of that, it's like strands of hair that make up muscle, every one of those has got its own fascia wrapped around it. It's like clean on everything.
You never hear about it. I just have to say. I mean, I took biology in college. Never heard the word fascia. I've never seen a picture of it. I've never seen it photographed. I mean, I'm sure it has. I'm sure, but
oh, it's wonderful.
And it literally wraps every organ. It wraps every part of you. It's like everything is. We're all like wrapped up in netting inside.
Yeah, and it gives us the continuous architecture of the body. Western medicine, a lot of traditional anatomy was described by surgeons who use knives, right, in the 1700s, 1800s, whatever, and they like to cut things because they've got knives. So they look at the body and go, this, there's a cut point here and a cut point here, so that's a thing. And then there's another thing and another thing. It's this reductionist way at looking at the body. Yeah. This is muscle A, this is muscle B, and we give them all these fancy names. But when you look at the fascia, it's one piece. I use the analogy of if you think of fascia like the skin of a sausage, right? And if you're making sausages, you start with the bag and then you fill it with whatever filling. I won't ask what you're putting in there, but you fill it with the meat, so to speak, in the sausage. But at that point, it's still one sausage, right? And then you twist it off at individual areas to make your individual sausages. But it's still a string of sausages at that point. So if I was holding one end and you were holding the other, and I say, right, I'm going to hold still, you pull away, it's not just the sausage at your end that's going to deform and change shape, it's the whole structure. So that's what fascia describes. So which is why you can kind of pull on the foot and feel the other end of it. And coming back to voice, as we were talking about, the fascia that coats the vocal muscles begins under the sole of your foot. So
whoa!
I have a talk that I give called The Voice from Foot to Head, and I literally trace the anatomy of why, when I'm working with singers, I want to see what's going on at their feet. And I've worked with several singers who had, a particular vocal challenge. I didn't have to do anything around here. We sorted out their feet and it resolved the issue. So the plantar fascia is that band that sits under the sole of your foot that takes all our body weight when we slap around. The plantar side of your foot is the bit that plants into the ground. Fascia, it's made of fascia, so that's why it's called the plantar fascia. That's the beginning of one of these sausage strings that then goes up and coats your deep calf muscles, the inner thigh muscles, the pelvic floor, which is a big part of the breath mechanism, psoas muscles, which are dictating your pelvic tilt and therefore your spinal alignment, the diaphragm, which is this beautiful cathedral-like dome right in the middle of the body, and obviously primary muscle of breath, is part of this same sausage string. It then divides inside the rib cage and has sort of a back strip that comes up. The back strip that comes up encloses the heart, the pericardium, peri around cardium heart, the sac around the heart, which is a muscle too, right, is part of this same sausage string, which I think is interesting, that it's connected to all these very primal areas, and then comes up, there's a track that comes up the inside of the front of your rib cage, and then they come together in the throat and coat all the vocal muscles, and then it eventually comes up and goes all the way over your scalp to your forehead, one piece.
Wow.
So if you've got something going on in your foot that's loading the plantar fascia, it's like someone's tugging on one end of that sausage string. Therefore, the vocal muscles up the top are having to work harder because they're having to pull against the resistance. Maybe it's something, the diaphragm or the psoas muscles are super tight. Suddenly that's making the vocal muscles work too hard. So I need to go and check everything that's in that sausage string to make sure, again, efficiency. Well, let's just take away the thing that's causing the muscles to overwork, and then they don't have to overwork anymore. So this again gives us the idea of this continuity in the body, and that the fascia is, as you rightly said, going to compensate for a lot of other things. So I'm always like, fascia, what's the story here? If I'm like, oh, I'll figure this out, I'll ask the fascia, and the fascia will give me the story, and then I'll reflect that back to the person. And my job is to be the mediator. I'm mediating between you and your body, who's going, she's not listening. I literally get the sense when I put hands on people, it's like the body goes, oh, thank God, I've been yelling. No, she's not listening. Right, I've got a list. Can you tell her this? And so, but it's also introducing people to that language. Okay, if it's feeling like this is what it's telling you. And when you collapse into that hip, that's what's driving these symptoms. Let's figure that out. But then there's probably an emotional reason why they take up that posture, which gets into the identity thing, and how body language is primal when it comes to our kind of non-verbal expression. So then we'll often get into, well, why are your shoulders collapsed forwards? Yes, maybe you're on the phone, things like that. But, there's often a deeper story there of not feeling good enough, lacking confidence, grief, all these things. And typically if I'm doing hands-on techniques with the fascia to help it resolve, and again, I'm not doing anything, I'm offering an option for the fascia, and I'm like, here's an option. If it feels good and efficient, the fascia will reciprocate. If it doesn't, then I'm like, my bad, or I haven't, what I often say with people are always like, say the shoulders here, everyone always gets, I've got these shoulders, and they get all these massages on the shoulders. It's like, well, the shoulders are screaming because the pec fascia at the front is shortened and tightened, and the pec muscles are tightened.
Okay.
Release those up, this resolves. So often where you're getting the symptoms is not the cause. So you need to find the cause and not just keep placating the symptoms, because otherwise the thing's just going to come back. So by addressing the fascia, and say I've got someone who's tight across the front here, and it's making them kind of hunch around, that's also going to drive their behavior. Their behavior might have led them there, their emotions might have led them there, but it's a two-way system. If I said to you, sit like this all day and don't make eye contact with anyone, you'll probably feel miserable by the end of the day, right? It's a two-way system. But as we come to open it, often the story comes up or the resistance comes up. So then we've got to go and deal with what's that story, and let's make sure that it's safe. The nervous system has to know it's safe to be here. This is vulnerable to it for whatever reason. This is vulnerable, right? We're open to everything. When we collapse forward, we're protecting the abdominal area because it's the most vulnerable bit, doesn't have bone around it, got a kind of cages on other bits, but the belly is very vulnerable to attack. So we protect it. And if you're safe to come up, it doesn't matter how much hands-on treatment you've got if you haven't resolve the reason why the body has got you in that position. It's always working for you. It's never wrong. You just ask the right question. And I always say there's normally about 7 whys under there. I was the kid that was always like, yeah, but why? Yeah, but why? Yeah, but why? And that stands me in good stead now, because I'm like, yeah, but why? Yeah, but why is that?
Well, the why has served you well. Very now.
It's wise to ask.
Yeah.
Why?
That's cute.
Wise.
Very wise. In regard to the voice, I mean, you shared so much gold with voice and the power of the voice too. I mean, do you have any tips, just some basic tips for people who are rediscovering their voice?
Yes, and I think it's so important right now for people
Feels
to
like it.
Find that, it is, collectively as humanity, it's time to step up and be heard. If you don't like what's going on, there's a lot of things that people don't like going on in the world right now. You have to be heard, and that's a metaphoric as well as physical thing.
Yeah.
If you are in a position where your voice isn't really expressing your truth, if your body language isn't expressing your truth, then you're not in a position to do that. And often people are feeling disempowered. Well, what can I do to change the world? If you remember, you are the field. We are all the field. changing the coherence in your structure is structuring the field for everyone else. You take care of your little patch of real estate, that act of generosity to everybody else. That is your social responsibility. So a lot of people are always about taking, particularly the light workers, been there, done it, taking care of everyone else, not taking care of self, because, oh no, well, I just know. Taking care of yourself is your social responsibility. You are setting an example. If I, came to you and said, I'm going to help you with your voice and I'm going to be, you'd be like, seriously, find someone else, right? You have to model what it is that you're helping somebody achieve or get to, because that's part of it. We have a mirror neuron system that is mirroring everything that you see in other people. It's, again, part of our survival mechanism is to read the nonverbal cues in people. So every movement that someone makes, if you're watching them, like people watching me right now, you probably gathered I gesture a lot, right? You're actually firing all the muscles that you would use to do the movements I'm doing. You're just not actually displaying the actual movement. But in the brain, in the motor circuitry of the brain, you're actually firing your body in a replica of what you're seeing. You're connecting that to emotional memory. And that's how you're decoding the subcontext or the subtext of what I'm saying. So
you're saying our brain is right now. I am parroting you in my head with all these gestures you're doing. My mind is doing them. And so I'm sympathizing basically with you by pantomiming.
Yeah, empathizing. Right? Yeah. So the
empathizing.
This is a lot of what I do with artists, like what is the alchemy that exists between the audience and the performer? How do you leave your audience with, you could go and listen to a singer and go, oh, that was technically perfect. She hit all these notes, but it was a bit painting by numbers, and there's not a lot of emotional connection to it, where there are other artists where you're just completely absorbed. There's no idea of the passage of time. And then you come away with this emotional residue from it. So with artists, I'm like, which of those would you prefer, right? So let's help you understand. So I went and studied, all the biology of human communication, how we've evolved to communicate at a non-verbal level. Why is it that some artists you go, wow, I just was totally absorbed, and other ones you're like, I didn't believe them. What's going on there? Typically, it's the body language. It's nothing to do with how good a singer you are, or how good a dancer you are, or actor you are. Well, it kind of is with acting, but it's what was your body language telegraphing the same message that you were offering through the narrative of your text or the vocal of your song? Because all the studies show, if there's a mismatch between what someone's saying and what their body language is saying, people will believe the body language 99% of the time.
That is brilliant. I think it has to be repeated. So basically, when we can tell people are lying, it's because their body language is not matching their words.
Yeah. If I come up to you and go, I really like you.
It's good that you're an actress, because you can play out all these.
Right. It's like, you're going to go, yeah, no, you don't. Or if you're trying to sell something, oh, this product's brilliant. It's really great. You should, I've got 6, they're great. You should buy them. And you'd be like, go away. This is the most amazing thing. You're gonna love it. All my friends have gotten it's transformed their life. Oh, tell me more, right? So we buy the body language, not the spoken word. And when there's a mismatch, you don't trust the person. So when an artist is on stage, you've got to build trust with the audience, just like a healthcare practitioner has to build trust with the person they're treating. There has to be that two-way alchemy. The audience is not passive in this exchange. They are an active part of it. They are doing everything with you. There's just a set of cells that inhibit you expressing the actual movement. But there are some people, you've probably met people like this. Occasionally you meet somebody that when you're talking, they start mouthing the words with you.
Yeah.
In a mirror. Well, that doesn't inhibit very well. We're all doing that. But most people, there's an off switch that stops us from actually expressing it.
That's interesting.
but we connect that. So if I'm, if I suddenly go like this, everybody watching has fired their muscles in a mirror of that, connected it to an emotional memory, because this is hardwired into the limbic system. The emotional memory says, ooh, when I do that, it's because I'm afraid, therefore be afraid. And then everybody's on edge, right? It's a survival instinct. If there's a predator creeping up behind you and I can see it and you can't, and I go like that, you're going to need to do this too, so that you can, get out of the way, and it's going to get you before it's going to get me. So we're hardwired to do this. And even with the voice, you don't even have to see the person. You can hear it. So I always say I can hear posture. I can hear a recording of an artist, and they're slumped, or they're not aligned. They've got their chin poked forward. I can hear it, because of the change in the shape of the vocal tract or the level of constriction. If I had done this whole thing, if somebody was listening to this and not watching me, and I did the whole thing with a really kind of squeaky, constricted voice, by the end of it, you'd be going, oh my goodness, this is exhausting. Constriction is a stress response. Right? So if someone's speaking with a very constricted voice, then that's kind of putting everyone on edge.
Okay.
So when we learn to come into dilation and width, it sets everyone at ease. So as a performer, I always say you have to be the puppet master of all the emotion. If you want to scare people, great. If that's your character, perfect.
Right.
But if you're playing Mary Poppins, that might not be the way to go, right? So you've got to choose, and often people's body language is not matching the character they're playing, and therefore there's a disconnect, and the audience kind of going, nah, not sure. And really, you delivering your, weekly astrology, if you were telegraphing doubt, if you were kind of looking shifty, and people would go, I'm not watching that, right?
Right.
So important. So it's important for communication, it's important for our own health, but your own health and sense of self, having a clear GPS coordinate of you, sets a tone of rest for everybody else in the field, right? And if we all did that, if we could just click our fingers and everyone for a split second just go all over the planet, everything would stop. All the nonsense would stop.
That's true.
The power to do that.
Right. Yeah, powerful.
Just doing it for you, just sitting at home and taking a moment to come into that coherent state is an act of generosity. It is helping with this massive shift we're on right now. You don't have to do grand gestures. The Nobel Prize, the most recent one, has been given for non-local, right? Non-locality has been proven. Distance is completely a figment of our imagination.
Right.
Two particles can be connected at opposite ends of the galaxy and can be communicating.
Yeah. Cells from a heart will start beating together on the other side of the earth.
Exactly.
There's an instant connection there. And it's true too. I mean, I think we all feel this. There is an energetic command where I feel like for instance, if you try to be goofy in front of someone who's really centered, kind of kills the buzz. It's kind of hard. I get pulled into their energy because they're so centered. It's kind of a hard room here. I start getting a little nervous, tough crowd. Also, at Unite the Light, we all came together in our community to an event. Yep. You know about it. You watch, excuse me. I found myself in that room just trying to, because everyone was focused, at least when I was invisible, I think I just felt everyone feeling me.
Yes.
And I just felt this need to just be really buckle down and just hold space. I was very quiet and centered, but I was very aware of the energetic connections, especially among people who tend to vibrate higher than the average.
Yes. Yeah. And to understand that there's that reciprocity there, and to know that even a beautiful high frequency might not be right for you in that moment.
Right. Sometimes it wasn't. I needed a break.
Yeah. There's no right, wrong, good or bad. It's just, is it aligned? Is it not aligned? And it comes back to something you mentioned a little earlier about, I always talk about all you really need with the felt sense in the body is a sense of, am I safe? Am I unsafe? And a lot of people, I'm like, do you know what safe feels like? It's not a checklist of things. What does safe feel like in your body? And they're like, no idea. Safe and unsafe is the same as yes and no.
Yeah, it is.
So if you can develop a felt sense of safe, unsafe, yes, no, then you can, as soon as you'll start to pick it up and you'll be like, oh, that's a no. So then I need to put some boundary in.
Yep.
I have this, the way I work it is I see myself a bit like a dartboard. I have like concentric rings around me, 1 through 6. And so whenever I'm around people, I'm like, oh, you're staying at 6. You can come to 3. Yeah, like, you might upgrade you to 2. Okay, you're at 4, I think. So I have, and it's something you have to practice. Like everything in the body, you've got to practice this. But you've got to have that GPS of you to be able to adjudicate what is in alignment and what isn't. If you don't have that, then you're just falling into everyone else's energies and then wondering why it's off on you, right?
You just hit an amazing spot. So in my step system, step 0 is boundaries. And boundaries is what determines safety. So, I mean, and in the step system, you always start with 0 and go all the way up. So in the astrology says we always start with, am I safe? Basically. I protect. That's the beginning of all consciousness. And if you haven't separated yourself from the world, then you are suddenly vulnerable. If you haven't made that conscious distinction, that energetic conscious distinction, then quite often you find people in codependency, that they are, trying to calm someone else down to calm them down. And they're lacking that very simple separation. And I wonder, I mean, I theorize from time to time, like, how did this happen? Is it just because we were all tribal and like we were all in each other's space? Or is it part of modern, modernization where we've just literally lost touch with ourselves at the core? But I do see that. Are you safe in yourself? I think that's profound.
Yeah, and that really resonated with the 0 is the boundary, because that's, even in physics you call it the boundary condition, right? What is the boundary?
The circle, and it's the sphere that you are in, the energetic sphere you're in. 0 is a perfect glyph for it. That circle is a perfect glyph for what the power of that consciousness is. The consciousness of separation, of drawing a circle around something.
Yeah, and that's the whirlpool I was talking about, right?
Oh.
Water, but the spin rate creates the boundary condition, right? So that someone goes, that's a thing, and right? So it creates these distinctions, and it's like we are all the water, but we need to be aware of our boundary conditions because we're each here to have an individual experience. We're all expressions of a universal consciousness needing to experience itself from multiple perspectives. Then all perspectives are valid. There is no right, wrong, good, bad. There is simply, is it a yes for me? Is it a no for me?
Correct. Does it belong or not belong is what I say. Step 4. Yeah.
If I don't align with it, it's none of my business. That's
right.
my favorite phrase, particularly after the last few years, everything that we went through. None of my business. I'm not aligned with or this or whatever. It's none of my business. That's somebody else's. Don't rob people of their karmic journeys. They maybe need to go through that tumble dryer of whatever, but it's none of my business unless they ask for my help, and then I'll offer. If it aligns, they might take it on. If it doesn't, their boundary condition will repel it. Will it absorb? Will it repel? And that's the same with our body, because if we don't have good emotional boundaries that are typically set up in childhood, we have leaky cell membranes as well. It is in the physiology. People talking about leaky gut, right? Leaky brain, leaky cells.
Yes.
There is an emotional reason for that as well. If your emotional boundaries are porous, then typically your cellular boundaries are porous, and you will have issue. You have an issue telling self from non-self, which is the basis of autoimmune conditions. You think yourself is a non-self, and you attack it as if it's an external.
Oh my God! So you're saying that autoimmune is that the body's literally unaware of itself. It's hitting itself but doesn't know it.
Yes, it's an attack. So typically, if you're somebody who's had a childhood where you weren't able to express your boundaries, you weren't able to go, no, I don't want to do that. You were like, no, I've got to keep the peace. If you've got hyper anxious parent, for instance, your whole world is, I have to modify, I have to make sure their world is absolute. I can't make ripples in the field. Otherwise I'll upset them, because as humans, we are completely dependent upon our caregiver. We're not like some animals that are born and then they're kind of skipping off on their own. We're literally helpless unless.
Right.
So we have to form that bond with the caregiver.
Right.
Is a boundary
To
condition
get fed.
or a smudging of boundaries. So we cannot believe that they can do wrong because therefore our survival is threatened.
Right. That would be a bad
They
thought.
are behaving in a volatile way. You become the caregiver, right? Because you've got to manage the environment so that you don't trip them, right? But if they can't do wrong, it must be me, right?
Right.
I express this outwardly, I'm going to get shut down. If you don't outwardly
Right.
express something, you will inwardly express something. It becomes resentment. And
Okay.
that is the biological basis of that is inflammation, right? A no into the world is an inflammatory response. No, that's inappropriate. You've crossed my boundary. That's an inflammatory response outwardly expressed. If you don't express that and you repress it, the inflammatory response happens on the inside.
Wow.
Familiar with Gabor Mate's work. He has this phrase that I was at a conference with him many years ago, and it was just like this moment. He said, if you have the choice between guilt and resentment, choose the guilt every time, because resentment is soul suicide. And it's also the basis of inflammation turned inward because you fester, right? So if you someone calls you up and says, can you take me to the airport at like 2 a.m. and you're people pleaser, yeah, sure, great, yeah, I'll do it, no problem. And then you put the phone down and you're like, oh God, I've got to be up at 6 and another thing, and it's going to mess my whole day. So you internally, because you didn't say no, I'm sorry, I can't. You did acceptance, right? Because you didn't want to be rejected. You turn it inward and you fester and you resent. That's the basis of internally expressed inflammation, and an expression of that is autoimmune issues. So if you have that choice between feeling guilty because you say, actually, no, I really can't today, I'm so sorry, and then you're like, oh, I feel really bad, that is actually biologically better for you than saying yes and then having the resentment.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Time has flown by, Jenny. How come now you have a YouTube channel? I mean, do you have classes for the general public? How can people learn from you without having to touch them?
Yeah, no, I do a lot because I'm all about self-empowerment.
I love it.
There's one method. I can shortcut a few things with the hands-on stuff, but I actually don't do as much of that anymore. Okay. I do mainly online stuff, and I've been sort of restructuring in the last few years how I want to re-emerge. And so I did a bit of it inward with we all got sent to our rooms, right? We got sent to the naughty step for a couple of years, but it gave great time to kind of alchemize and decide actually that wasn't what I wanted to be doing anyway. I kind of didn't like I was working in a clinic before, and you're seeing sort of people next pain, back pain next, and I had this energy of people are still using me as a kind of a pharmaceutical model. Oh, you'll fix it. I need outside of me. It's like, no, I want to teach people to fish, not hand out food aid. I'd much rather go, here, this is how the shoulder works, and this is how if you use it like this, it's not going to get into the trouble. So I've been kind of doing more of that sort of health education side of things, and helping people reconcile that with their emotional journey, with their soul journey, and in the context of the planetary upgrading that's going on right now.
Right, which we haven't even got to yet.
But it's all these things. We're being shifted at a massive rate of knots right now. It just requires elasticity, flexibility. When we are stressed and off our center, we're in rigidity. Okay, so that's what I encourage people. When you find the neutral place, you can find your elasticity. If you find your physical elasticity, it'll be easier to get at the emotional elasticity because they are reciprocal. So just bear in mind what makes you kind of shrink. I always talk, it's like suddenly your body feels 2 sizes too small, right? A little shrink wrapping going on, and what allows you to expand. All the universe does is contraction, expansion, right? There's no up, down, right, left, north, south. It's just in and out, contraction, expansion. What makes you contract? What makes you expand? That's your yes and no.
Okay, brilliant. So your website's on the screen.
Yep.
I'm just looking. It looks like she has individual health education, publications, workshops, speaking. You're just a plethora of information. And
I have a newsletter there, and so I will be setting up some classes soon. I'm just kind of putting those in place right now. So if you sign up to my newsletter, I very rarely do them, so don't worry, you're not going to get bombarded with stuff. But I will let you know if I've got something coming up. But also my online sessions there, if you've got a group of people who are like, oh, we'd all love to know more about this, book it as a group session. Make your own little class. You can share the cost between a group of you, and I'd love nothing more than showing up on a call and not knowing what we're going to do. What do you want to know?
Well, that's brilliant. You have that ability, and I have to say, yesterday helping me, you changed a lot. It's still kind of filtering in, helping me find my center and my power and strengthen my voice. And in I learned so much in 1 hour with her. It's pretty profound. And I realized in that moment, we need to bring her on the show tomorrow.
just a little clarify there that would just help people. Again, you're not strengthening your voice. You're taking away the things that were blocking.
I'm removing the restrictions.
Yeah. The voice is fine. It's just had a few blocks around it. So remove the blocks. The voice knows what to do. The body knows what to do. We just need to get out of its way.
So far, it's working, and agreed. And we can go down another rabbit hole of why I was holding back my own voice, even as a public speaker. There's a lot to learn there. So we'd love to have you back. Everyone in the audience was just absolutely captivated by you and everything you had to say. I know you and I'll be talking again. Please stay backstage here real quick, and we'll talk right after I wrap up the show. But thank you, Jenny. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you so much. Bravo, bravo. So charming and wonderful, isn't she? And just a plethora of knowledge. And I can feel something energetic happening too. She's energetically working on you when you're talking to her. I don't know if she knows. I'll ask her backstage, but good stuff. I hope you all liked it. Just some wrap up information here, you all. Let's see here. I usually have to be a little more available. First of all, as we mentioned, we would love, I will be at the convention that we were talking about earlier. We'll be talking about it. Let's go back to the beginning. Sorry. The Lemurian Life Expo 2024, which will be on June 20th. I will be there myself. I would love to meet you if you happen to be there. I'll be listening to the speakers for the first 3 or 4 days. There's also workshops after. I would love to see you there. If not, you can watch. Ruben Langdon is a great guy. Visit LemurianLifeExpo.com to sign up for that. And let's hang out and get a selfie. It'll be great. Looking forward to it. All right. That was my first thing I want to make sure we hit. Secondly, of course, LOL, Leading Out Loud, my Monday night show. If you're not familiar, we have a great cast of characters there. Chris Reck, Tarot Master, Scott Cruz, Psychic Medium, Devin Doer, Angel Intuitive, live Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. This Monday, we're going to be talking about dreams, and we have a special dream expert coming back, a friend of the show. Lori Lowenberg will be our guest on Monday. You might have seen her dream special. Now this Fab Four will be working on it together and talking to her together, working on the dream topic that is together. So check us out next Monday. And of course, my own personal sensei service, SeriousJoy.com. We have a phenomenal staff. We're here to help you navigate your consciousness. What's interesting about what we just heard with Jenny is that she helps you with your posture. What Serious Joy really does is help you find your spiritual posture. What ought to I be paying attention to in the moment? What is valid? What is true? What is not true? Where is my truth? And who am I? Self-realization. So we'd love to have you be a part of our team. Come on down and be a part of our family. Come join SeriousJoy.com. We have some special extra episodes too. Last week, we had a show called Angel Intervention with Devin Doer and Heather Exposito. That is now live on the website to watch. These two gals gave a reading, a tag team reading to 3 of our subscribers, Devin, the angel intuitive, Heather, the astrologer. This week, I'm proud to announce my soul sister is back with Keeping It Surreal with Kristen Ryder. The topic is rebirth and breakdown. She's going to be talking to people who have recently gone through that Phoenix breakdown. That's what my voice has done. I went through it. A lot of us after Unite the Light came out of it. We're going to be talking about how it is you go through that rebirth and how it is you bounce back after you break down. That'll be live this Wednesday, June 12th at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, exclusively on SeriousJoy.com. Sharing is caring, my dear friend. The best thing you can do to help me is to share your horoscope or your friends' horoscopes with them. I appreciate it. I'm grateful. It is the highest form of good karma I think there is. You can also come down to our Facebook group at SeriousJoy.club, where we also have the Chiron study group helping you to learn metaphysics and different topics. But at SeriousJoy.club, you are allowed to advertise for your own spiritual businesses. Only spiritual, though. And we define spiritual as trying to help the world and it to be a better place. If you'd like to follow me on social media, come to SeriousJoy.social. You'll see links to everything we're on. And if you'd rather listen instead of watch, you can find our Namaste podcast in audio form on Spotify, Stitcher, and Apple Podcasts. I want to give a special thanks to our producer tonight, Noelle Way, our casting coordinator, Mara Moon, our director, Sarah Lyman, my teaching staff, Robbie Hunt, Kristen Ryder, Devin Doer, Joe Zamet, Gwen English, Heather Exposito, and Daiki Okamoto. And a special thanks to all of our super friends, Sydney, Princess Coffee Bean, Jill Louise, Margot Malia, Experimental Elemental. I saw all your jokes tonight. Erica, I saw your comments. Michelle Camper, Michelle Bell, Cat Rider, Soul Brother, Daryl Blankenship. I'm loving the new picture, bro. Neptune Girl, Jamar, Christine Kelly, Sydney, and always Iggy, and of course, Neetu. All right, friends. Well, next time you hear me, I should be fully recovered. But until then, I will be loving you from afar. I love you, dear friend. Live, love, be.